to our Morning Throners podcast.
I'm Nelson.
I'm Jeff.
I'm Go.
And I'm Kyle. We're the fucking Morning Throners.
And welcome back to another episode of your favorite Song of Ice and Fire podcast. We're the Morning Throners here to talk Tyrion 4. Boys, let's hop right in.
Before we get into that, let's cover the basics. Like, subscribe. Everybody, thanks for watching. We just started a Discord. This will be the first podcast we're recording with actually up and running. I have no idea what I'm doing over there, so if I'm doing anything wrong, just tell me. But feel free to join the link below. Anybody who's listening to the audio version of the podcast, you can find any of the maps we talk about or anything like that over there.
The audio version of the podcast. What's the visual version?
The YouTube one with the maps and stuff that I'm talking about. So you don't have to do a Discord. Dumbass.
Which is like once in every
silly
seven
salamander
podcasts.
That's not true. Like the past two, at least, I've had a map or a picture.
Yeah. All right. Well,
but yeah. So getting into this one.
Overall, this chapter, it's a lot of Tyrion going around talking to a bunch of people, and not that it's super active, but there is a lot of substance. I would say
it's political, very political,
schemy, very schemy.
Schemy, yeah. So,
Kyle, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it was a little heavy on the politics, a little heavy on the kind of the scheming and stuff. That I mean, I don't hate it, but it wasn't Tyrion's.
It just doesn't mean much to you yet. Does
me.
not mean much to you yet.
It's tough because this is one of the things that as I was reading it, I was like, because I understand everything that happens in this chapter, obviously, because this is a reread. And I think this is one of those that definitely lends itself to a reread. And I was thinking, as I was going, I was like, Kyle's probably going to understand a little bit of what Tyrion's doing, but there's no way he's going to get the whole picture. And I was interested to see where that spectrum a first-time reader falls, because I have no idea where I fell the first time I read this, right?
Yeah, the first time I read this, I was like, what the fuck did I just read? I had to have been. It doesn't... If you don't know, it doesn't make much sense. I don't think.
I mean, and I got some of it for sure. I'm not trying to say that I'm completely an idiot and missed that he was sending off the other kids and making these deals that other people aren't going to agree with. So I think he's kind of making empty deals to some degree, where he's just kind of like it doesn't matter if she cares about Marcella or Tommen, because they're not actually ever going to go to these places or do these things.
Gotcha.
But I don't know. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think it'll be one that is potentially one that you kind of come back to, what I'm saying, you recall in a future chapter. You're like,
100%.
That's what this was getting to.
I think potentially even a few things. So let's get into it at the beginning here. But Tyrion, we'll get into it a little more in detail, but there's a part where even Pycelle's up taking this letter away, and Tyrion pockets something here. Even that is probably going to come up in a future chapter, which isn't the main point of this chapter, but that's something that a lot of people forget when they're done reading this, because so much other stuff happened.
I didn't remember it. Exactly. I didn't remember it exactly on the reread. Right. I'm like, what the fuck is that?
So even that's something that's probably going to come up in a later chapter. No spoilers, but
red herring or whatever.
Yeah, you don't write that into a book if it doesn't come up later, type thing.
Chekhov's gun. That's it.
Chekhov's gun. Yeah.
So getting into it, the basic gist of the chapter is he meets with Pycelle, little figure, and varies.
Bright and early in the morning.
Varies all throughout the course of a day. And Pycelle super early is where we start. So he's meeting with Pycelle. Pycelle, I guess, arranged the meeting in the morning because he's apologizing for being the one who sets it up and being like, hey, I'm old and I'm awake now.
Don't sleep well.
Yeah. They're eating some shitty breakfast and they're commenting on the state of hunger in the city. How Pycelle's like, I like to keep my table spare in times like this when all the people are struggling.
He's being humble.
He's got to be such a little bullshitter too.
It seems like he's bullshitting some of this stuff, but it's hard to tell.
He's gonna leave and break out fucking steaks and eggs in a second.
Yeah, but why would he put up this front against Tyrion?
Yeah, who cares? He's not starving.
Eats lavishly.
Yeah,
drinks whores and eats a lot.
I mean, just to try and prove that he's different. Yeah. And not prove, but like I was saying, put up the front that I'm better than you because I care more.
Or he's pious.
I'm a maester. I care about everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whether obviously he doesn't care.
I think pious is.
I don't think he cares about, but I think it's more about the image he's putting out than his actual actions here.
The main reason Tyrion's there is to get a message sent.
Yep.
And he wants to send 2 copies of the same letter to Dorne Martell
for safety
of Dorne,
in case one of the birds goes down.
Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming it's sealed.
They're both sealed.
I mean, yeah, they have to be.
I think they even say it confused me because I don't understand how these were ever got sealed. And he says sealed at both ends, which makes you think
I thought he said sealed at both ends.
Makes me think like you roll it up into a circle and then put the ends of the circle in the wax, which is not how I pictured it, right? But who the fuck knows?
But I guess that's how it has to be.
I guess it keeps it super sealed.
He said it's hasty business and send out the birds as soon as possible. And the fastest birds.
Yeah, Pycelle offers, get some paper and ink. Like, we're gonna write this puppy out now. And Tyrion's like, oh no, I got that taken care of. I wrote these in my room. No one like has to take a look at it. You know what I mean? No one knows what's going on. So they don't write the letters here. Tyrion just like pulls them out of his pocket and gives them to Pycelle. And like you said, Glow, he's like, yeah, let's get him going now. Because he's like, oh, I'll send them after breakfast. And Tyrion's like, no, this is way too important. Get him going now.
Which, I mean, we learn is also to get him out of the room, too.
100%. Like, what is so important that it can't wait 20 minutes? Like, this thing's about to take a bird's flight. You know what I mean? Like, 20 minutes is nothing.
Yeah, the bird could just go, hang out in a tree for a day for all he knows. Like, what's that?
Exactly.
When birds migrate, how fast, like, let's just say they're leaving PA, how fast does it take them to get to Florida? Like, I have no idea.
Well, they do it because of weather, right? So they probably just travel with the weather.
Do they stop to rest? Or do they just fucking hit it on a...
No, I mean, that's why you see like flocks of geese and stuff landing in fields.
Yeah, so like how long do they chill in those fields?
They're not
like
always
a day,
migrating.
A couple of hours to sleep. Like, how long does it take them to get down fucking to
like I said, however long it takes for Miami's weather to get like the weather that it is here. You know what I mean? Like it may take like 2 months for it to be as cold and it doesn't ever get as cold. But you know what I mean? They probably just as long as they're in that good temperature, they don't give a fuck.
Call your roommate back in so he can give us another.
Who has a roommate with an expert on migratory birds? These birds probably don't migrate at all, though, right? Like crows and shit.
No, I'm just talking in general. So like we can get an idea for how long it would take a bird to leave King's Landing to fly to fucking what's it called? I don't know how long it takes a bird to fly. How fast do they fly?
What's the airspeed velocity of a wading swallow? What's that from?
Unladen.
Monty Python.
Yeah.
All right, let's get going, guys. Long one.
I don't even know what the fuck we were talking about there. Sent one text message and got lost on birds.
What we do know about this letter, I mean, I guess what do we do know about this letter, Kyle?
It's for what's his name? Doran Martell, Prince of Dorne.
Yep, exactly. So we don't know what it's in, but we just know who it's going to and that there's 2 copies.
And we kind of find out later what was in this letter.
Yeah, we'll talk about it there.
We'll talk about it then.
But at this point, we don't really know much.
Tyrion ate while Pycelle went up to send the letters, and then he also walked over to check out all of the potions and poisons on the wall.
Yeah. Also, just because we talked about that chain so much, I'll mention this quick quote too. As Pycelle gets up to take the letter, Tyrion notices his chain. It was a heavy thing, 12 maester's collars threaded around and through each other, and ornamented with gemstones. And it seemed to Tyrion that the gold and silver and platinum links far outnumbered those of baser metals. So from what I understand of how like the Citadel works is like you basically study, and once you complete a semester of a subject or whatever, you get a link of that metal. So the fact that he has all gold, silver, and platinum, either he's just like fuck the Mason chain, I'm gonna start wearing drip on top of this shit, or he just like studied.
The guy that says he doesn't eat much when everybody's starving is going drip.
Well, I mean, either way, he's going drip because he's got fucking like gemstones and shit on these metals anyway, which like I don't think that's part of Citadel custom like at all. But what I'm saying is, even if these links are genuine, if they are genuine, all that really says is that he knows more about
certain things.
I think it's like currency and stuff.
Didn't you say? I thought like the better metals or the more expensive metals were like the finer arts. Like
I don't think necessarily. I looked up.
The one note I had was I forget what these precious metals mean, and compared to like baser metals, I don't know. Like
I mean, even if it is like the fine arts or whatever, like or like some specialized thing, it's I guess what Nelson was getting at is it is him kind of narrowing his study at the very least. Like maybe he's not as well versed as somebody that has just one of every. He's got like 12 of the one.
Well, I mean, everyone kind of does that the further you go in academia.
I mean, that's
right?
just natural, right?
You don't just like stay super broad.
I was thinking it was for potions and poisons because of how many fucking different types of potions and poisons.
I did. I looked it up. It wasn't. It was like money and it was like economics and like politics and like shit that you would expect a person like in this position kind of to have. But it did make me wonder, like, did he just like add links because nobody would fucking notice, like once he got out of the Citadel, or B, like, I guess there's potentially like vanity in approaching those subjects, knowing that at the end of the day I'm gonna have a big ass gold chain instead of a bronze chain type thing. I'm not sure.
I mean, if he would have faked his links, they have to have like maester meetings every now and again and be like, hey, who the fuck gave you all these links? Like, what'd you do, motherfucker? From, dog?
Yeah. It's just like cardboard link, like one of that's an old beer can. Myself. What the fuck are you doing, man?
They need to give him one of those links that Tyrion's having made. Just like give him a ball and chain, keep his neck to the floor.
Huge. Yeah. 400 pounds.
Exactly.
So as you said, Pycelle went up to the rookery to release the ravens, and Tyrion's taking a look around. He sees like all these different types of potions. He noted Sweet Sleep and Nightshade, Milk of the Poppy, Tears of Lys, Powdered Greycap, Wolfsbane and Demon's Dance, Basilisk Venom, Blind Eye, Widow's Blood, and then he just takes one unnamed vial from the pile.
Dusty one too.
What's named, but he doesn't give us the name.
And it was dusty.
Have we heard of any of these before?
Yeah, I think the Tears of Lys we talked about.
Yep.
Milk of the Poppy, obviously. I think
the Tears of Lys was the John Aaron one.
Okay. Well, I assumed what he was taking here was the John Aaron one. And I thought it was going to be somehow he was going to kind of get it to, what's her name? Lysa.
Gotcha.
Is his wife?
Why?
Wifey poo.
Oh, as proof. Gotcha. Because he proves it.
As
part of the little thing.
Here's the potion. I thought he was going to try and pin it on
Makes sense.
Pycelle or on.
But I mean, that's probably pretty common in most maesters cabinets to have.
Is it?
I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, it's the first we've heard.
That's what I'm saying.
Sounds like he had a bunch. Maybe not like all
I don't
the
have poison in my
but
cabinet, really.
I'll say Jeff's right, just because, well, in the Pycelle chapter, the only POV from a maester we get, he talks about how the Strangler, that poison that he was using.
You mean Crescent?
Crescent.
Yeah, I was going to say Crescent. Yeah.
He was talking about how the Strangler, that potion he was using, was like super, super rare. And he's like, only 3 people in the world have it. The maesters.
And here's the other one.
The maesters and these other 2 people. Right. Well, I'm just saying, if the maesters have that super
Tyrion
rare
just took
one,
from this guy.
Well, I'm just saying, gotcha. If they have that super rare one, then they probably have other super rare potions. So, Jeff's probably right on that. They probably just got it all. So he takes it.
Yeah, I mean,
sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I don't know how useful poisons would be. Overall.
Poison's a woman's weapon.
Yeah, I know. That was what I was gonna say as well. That was another thing.
So Tyrion goes back to his seat, eats some eggs. He's thinking about some of the politics in the city. I guess Lord Giles Rosby and Lord Lady Tana Stokeworth, these names keep coming up. They were the ones who both provided their letters from Stannis to the castle. So like in the last Tyrion chapter, both of their copies of the letter from Stannis' letters, what we were reading. And in this one, we find out that they're providing most of the food for like Maegor's Holdfast, it seems. Not the city, like fuck the city, but they're the ones that bringing in like the good food that all like the rich people and like the noble people are still eating. And Tyrion just mentioned they both live close to the castle and were untouched by war. We kind of talked about it the past couple chapters because they keep dropping these guys' names.
All right. So
I like how Tyrion's so fat that he doesn't even care that this food sucks. He's still just eating it all.
Yeah, I mean,
by the way, the whole time he's like bitching about it.
We've all been there. We've all been like, this is the worst burger I've ever had. Munch. You know what I mean? Like we've all been there.
This egg needs some salt. This porridge sucks.
Porridge needs some honey.
Yeah. So this next part where Pycelle comes back down, it confused me a little bit because it sounds like he is trying to talk about the contents of the letter. But if it's sealed, then he's kind of like admitting to knowing about it. You know what I mean? Like he's like, or is he just prodding to try and figure out what was in it? Like, oh, why are we talking to Dorne? Or he's like, oh shit, because they bring up like, oh, we should leave Cersei out of it. So if it was nothing bad or nothing involving Cersei, how would he know that? You know?
Well, it's funny because doesn't Tyrion see like one bird leave instead of 2 birds?
Oh,
right. Like out the window, he looks and like 1 bird flies away instead of 2.
Spied the raven, dark in the dawn sky, and turned briskly towards the maze of shelves. So you're right. I mean, it only mentions 1 raven.
I took that as like I took that line, and I know it's like just a quick line in passing as like
only 1 got sent.
A drop of
like 1 hint.
Not that like Pycelle read it, but like Pycelle at least pocketed one of them. You know what I mean? Or
read it and then resealed it.
Tyrion doesn't know what Pycelle did wrong, but Pycelle didn't do what he said at this point. Tyrion knows like he didn't do what he said. So kind of to your point, whether he knows exactly the contents or he's just like going to pocket it and take it to somebody later or whatever. Tyrion probably suspects something's up here after he sees one bird leave when he just gave the guy 2 letters.
Right. So here's what Pycelle says right when he comes back down. It is done, my lord. A matter like this, best done promptly. Indeed. Of great import.
Gotcha. Well, I think it's partly just because that's what Tyrion was saying at the end.
But then he asks, like, so he says, like, oh, this needs to be done promptly. And he's like, is it of great import? Like, question mark. Yeah. So, like, he's, like, playing, like, oh, I don't know what it's about, but, oh, I actually do.
He did say a matter like this, like he knows what it is.
It's like when you're in a conversation with your friends, like two of your friends who, like, know what they're talking about, and you play along just enough, hoping that you'll pick up on what's going on through context clues. Like, Pycelle's trying to do that with Tyrion, but, like, Tyrion knows, like, it's just me and you, dude. Like, there's no one. I'm the only one that knows what's in those letters type thing.
Yeah.
And Pycelle's trying to play this game like, oh, I know what we're talking about, kind of. Just give me a little more information. So, yeah, they have this weird, like, back and forth Tyrion Pycelle where he's basically just, like,
trying to prod for more information, I guess. And like, oh, who should we tell? Blah, blah, blah.
Well, and Pycelle's like, or Tyrion ends the conversation with saying, like, if you get a response back, don't tell anybody. But there's the part where Pycelle's basically like, oh, should we tell Cersei? Should we talk? You're going to bring it up in the small council meeting or whatever? Yeah. And Tyrion's basically like, the small council is there to advise. This I've already made a decision on. Like, there's no advice to be given here. Basically, we're just going to do it.
As you say.
And the king, he's a boy of 13. I speak with his voice.
Exactly. And he's like, it might be whatever comes up about Cersei. He's like, oh, she's such the frailty of her sex. Somebody says that, Pycelle or
and a woman to be sure.
Spare her this burden.
Is that Pycelle when Tyrion's like, she has so much to worry about, and he's like, oh yeah, she's also a woman. Like just like, it's so weird. Like this conversation, it's like. It's obvious that they're having like a sub conversation on top of their conversations, like don't fucking say anything type stuff. I mean, I guess that's also what they're just saying out loud too.
Even Tyrion says that. He's like, yeah, she's frail. Just ask Ned.
Oh yeah, just exactly. Ask Ned Stark.
But then he's like, oh yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'm glad you're just as worried about her as I am.
Yeah. He's like, and if you get a reply, make sure you don't tell anybody except for me. And then Tyrion thinks to himself, one. We go out. This next part. Tyrion, this one is kind of like the rapid fire round of everything else going on in this chapter, where Tyrion's handling all these political things.
Whole lot of info.
But here he goes and meets Bronn, and Bronn just fires a bunch of them at him. So what's Bronn doing when we meet him?
Bronn's training some welts on how to.
He's not training them, you slapdick.
He's kind of just sitting there watching them train,
trying to pick ones.
Yeah, but he's got to be helping them, right?
No, he wants to kill them. He's trying to like game plan. He's studying them.
That's half true, but I think Kyle was onto something too.
I think he's trying to recruit as well, trying to pick out the best of the best.
I don't think that's entirely.
Maybe not recruit.
I think if he saw somebody good, I don't think he would flinch, especially somebody like this who's like a hedge knight. Because like we did hear from Tyrion that he's basically just trying to acquire swords. But most of the people he's probably seen fight in the yard are like house knights, and you're not going to go and be like, hey, you want to be a sellsword for Tyrion? They're like, fuck you.
They called him hedge
this
knight.
This guy was a hedge knight. The one guy they mentioned is a hedge knight, though. So I could definitely see him recruiting people like this who might be 100% willing to fight for some money. You know what I mean?
So is this what Tyrion's personal guard? I guess then Bronn will.
Yeah, Bronn's been hiring sellswords. Remember in the last one, he was telling Tyrion.
That's what I'm saying. So Bronn's going to like pick Tyrion's personal guard is what I'm saying.
I mean, I didn't pick up on that. I literally thought he was just like, all right, these people are fighting. Like, let me watch them just in case I fight them and I'll know how to kill them.
Yeah, that's the main part, I think.
Well, he's also saying, but one day my life may hang on how close I've watched your lap. Oh, okay, I got it.
Yeah, because he's going to fight him.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's kind of what happens. We kind of jumped around a little bit, but yeah, Bronn's watching these guys. He says the best one is this one hedge knight called Sir Talad. He's like, he's the best one, but he gets into a pattern like I can see with his strokes, and if he fights me, it'll be the death of him. And Bronn gives a little Bronn laugh. And he says exactly what Glow said. Tyrion's like, you could be out fucking whores and stuff, and some like hot chick walks by, right? Like while Tyrion's talking to Bronn, and Bronn doesn't Bronn doesn't even look at the girls, and he's like, what the fuck's wrong with you, Bronn? Like, you're too focused on like the fighting, and that's where he says what either one of Glow or Jeff just said, like, my life may depend on it one day. And Tyrion's like, this guy fights for us. Like, you're not gonna have to fight this guy. Like, calm down, Bronn. Like, we're in a good place here.
You never know.
Yeah, pretty much what Bronn says. Like, you never know. Bronn starts giving Tyrion the lowdown of like, since Joffrey probably isn't dealing with like the actual people who want to come talk to the king, that falls on Tyrion. Like when Ned had to sit in the chair when Robert was out hunting type shit. So Bronn says there's 30 people that want some type of audience with Tyrion today. He doesn't obviously give mention of all who they all are, but we get a few of them. First one,
Lady Tanda.
What
Wants
she
to bang
want?
Tyrion.
No, she wants
have her
Lawless
daughter
to
bang
bang Tyrion.
Her daughter, yeah.
yeah, her simple daughter.
Lawless is trying to get that
Lollies.
seed.
Apparently she's been inviting Tyrion to dinner a lot. I think in the last Tyrion chapter, we even heard a part like while Tyrion in like a part like this where Tyrion's walking from like council to his own room. Lady Tanda's like overlooking a covered bridge and like yelling to him in the distance, and he ignores her. I don't know if you guys remember that, but I think that was in the last chapter. Like
that.
this, like
I think you're right.
This was already
when he's
happening.
going to the whorehouse or whatever.
I think he's going to talk to the people who are building the chain, the Smiths things, and he like he hears Lady Tanda and he's like, I just ignored it and kept walking like I didn't hear her type thing. But like this is he's set this up in the past chapter too that like Tanda's been annoying Tyrion. So that he has a few suggestions on what she can do with her 33-year-old simple daughter that doesn't involve him. One involves just marry yourself, Bronn,
or Shagga.
Then they suggest Shagga, and he says Shagga's more like to eat the goose, or Shagga's more like to marry the goose and eat the maid, and Lollies outweigh Shagga anyway. So this daughter is not a fought over maiden. By the least. Yeah. She's undesirable. Small house, daughter.
Tyrion's
fat,
a one-woman girl.
simple,
Or one-woman man anyway.
That's simple. Yeah. Yeah.
Tyrion's only in it for Shay. So the next person is a moneylender from Bravos wants to speak to the king of their debt.
Yep. Kyle, do we know anything about this?
I'm sorry. I did find it here. Tyrion heard Lady Tanda calling to him merrily from the top of the Serpentine steps. Pretending not to notice her, he waddled a bit faster.
Yeah, that was in the last Tyrion chapter.
So what was the question?
We were just talking about the next
moneylender comes back from Bravos.
What do we know about the moneylender? Like, not the moneylender in particular, but like just that situation.
The king's debt.
Yeah, king's in debt, and it sounds like those debts are potentially getting called back, or the loan shark or whoever this Iron Bank wants at least set up a meeting and see how things are going with it. So he sends it.
Yeah, it's kind of like the bank is calling, exactly like your bill's about to come due, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's just one of those things, kind of like I said in the last Bran chapter when they're talking about a lot of the boring politics. People say about the Lord, it's kind of a joke, but people say about Lord of the Rings, what's everyone's tax policy? This is, I think, George R. R. Martin like getting into that. Like you have to take care of shit like this. Yeah,
let's just.
We also get a huge little finger dump later on like a ton of his backstory, which kind of makes some of this make sense too. Go ahead, Jeff.
So we know who's calling, right? The people in Bravos, the like actual foundation. I guess
the
you'd
Iron
call it.
Bank.
I don't.
The Iron Bank.
Yeah,
Okay.
Nelson said that, so I don't know.
Say they just like say fuck you, we're not paying.
Yeah.
Fuck you, we're not paying. The Iron Bank have an army. Like
I know the answer to this, but
I don't think we should.
The answer is yes.
Well,
just to keep it simple, the answer is yes. I think Jeff thought they did it. The answer is yes. They have.
I was thinking maybe they would like hire somebody, but I didn't.
I don't think there's a huge spoiler. There's a ton of most of the armies in Essos are sellswords, where they basically just like they're literally entire armies that you buy if a war comes, and one of them is like extremely big, much bigger than the rest, and it's like known to be loyal to the Iron Bank.
All right, so I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Now. All right, let's move forward then. The next person is a river lord came to complain about the mountain.
Yeah, I mean,
or Lorch, or somebody else, cohort.
Yeah, we've heard his name, Vargo Hoat. We've heard these three mentioned together multiple times. I think only one person ever says their name together. It's when Tywin originally commands them to all go out. But yeah, so we know this cohort's name is named Vargo Hoat. But yeah, and Tyrion,
I mean, just brutal. Burned the keep, raped his wife, and killed all his peasants.
Is it Bronn or Tyrion that says like it's war? Like it's war. Like what the fuck do you want?
I believe they call that war. Yeah.
Like it's interesting, like what would happen, but like this is the Riverlands are against you. Like this is like if your enemy in war came to you and you're like, you're beating me. You're like, yeah, no shit, good.
But that goes back to what we're talking
He's
about.
like, yo, give him. You go.
No, I was just gonna say we've said this a million times though. Like that's not like gentleman's war.
Yeah, exactly.
And it doesn't really make sense too. Like,
Geneva
all right, I guess. Like, what if parts of the Riverlands wanted to stay loyal to the crown? Like, and they're just burning it. Like, they're just cutting off ties. Like, they could be gaining people. They don't know. Like,
and that's Tyrion's motive here. He's like, all right, we could use this guy. We could use Riverlands people on our side. Get him a nice, cot to stay in tonight. I'll meet with him tomorrow and give him a pair of boots.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Boots are important.
Sick pair of boots. some Nike Air Jordans, dog.
Not the shitty one.
Not no Starburys.
Dude, I had a couple pair of Starburys.
Everyone did, dude. They're like $15.
All right, so who's next? Who wants to talk Tyrion after
Bakers, butchers, and greengrocers?
Yep.
And they don't have it. There's nothing to give them, but they want some protection because now they're getting raided by these mobs, essentially, because food prices.
And a dude got thrown in his own oven.
A baker got baked in his own oven, yeah. Because his bread prices were too high. And Tyrion asked Bronn, were his bread prices too high? And Bronn's like, he's not around to argue anymore.
Yeah, he's not apt to deny it.
I mean, isn't that just economics? Like,
and I guess
supply and demand. Supply is low, demand goes up. Prices go up. I guess
this guy was absurdly ridiculous, though, because none of the other bakers got burned, at least not yet. Because Tyrion says the next time this happens, Tyrion asks Bronn, like, did they eat the man?
Start eating them.
And he says no. He says Tyrion's like, there will next time.
Well, Tyrion's like, I can't send more city watchmen because they were a part of the mob.
Exactly. They're just as hungry as everybody else. So these people keep coming to the gate, and Tyrion just keeps turning them away, or they're coming to talk to him now, and he just turns them away with nothing. And he's like, just tell him the king will do all he can. And Bronn's like, they want bread, not promises. And Tyrion's like, if I give them bread today, then tomorrow there's just gonna be twice as many back asking for more bread. So like, we can't go down that route. And it's just like, it is a tough situation. Like, what do you do with these people when you have food? You have a little bit of food, but like, you're not enough for everybody.
It's definitely interesting too. Like, Tyrion just thinks to himself, like, man, I wonder what kind of meat is in the soup. I hope it's good meat.
Well, even in the Arya chapter, when we knew, she was saying that they would give you a handful of coppers for a puppy, right? That was what Arya said. The people from the pot shops would give you a handful of coppers from a puppy. And that was when times were good. So.
All right, then there's the last person that we know is waiting for Tyrion.
Yep.
Fucking Alistair.
He'll keep waiting. So
God damn it, Alistair. Why'd you have to be a dick?
You mentioned this, I think, in one of the spoiler sections, Nels, that Alistair was on his way.
The first one where we hear that, probably the first John one where we hear that Alistair gets sent. I'm like, yeah, when he gets there, he's just going to sit in a room for a little bit. So
Tyrion.
He's here with his hand in the jar. The thing is, my thought on this, though, is if this hand was like doing what it's supposed to be doing, then that would have made word to Bronn and then to Tyrion in this conversation. If it was moving around. They said that he's got like a rotted hand, right? Which makes you think like maybe it's the magic this is worn off or something, and now he just got a hand in the jar, which I guess, what does it prove? And if anything. Tyrion actually gets excited when he first hears it's somebody from the wall. He's like, oh yeah, I guess I should see them. He's like, is it Yoren by chance? And like, oh no, it's somebody named Thorne. And Tyrion's like, fuck that guy. Put him in a cell, a dank cell where they haven't changed the rushes in a year.
Fucking Yoren's dead though.
Yeah.
If it would have been like anyone other than Alistair or Janos Slint, he would have been fine. Like, yeah, sure.
Slint's back.
Slint would have come right back. That's hilarious.
So he got killed, I think.
I think that's it with Bronn. So Tyrion goes across the yard and we get a little visit from the sister.
His sweet sister.
She's sitting on a super nice horse, dressed up to the nines.
She's with a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm about to go take a ride, check out some of our trebuchets and whatnot.
At least somebody here cares about our defenses.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Yeah, she says at least one of us has to hear about their defenses, but that she's also going. I did think about that, Chloe. She's going to look at the trebuchets and catapults that, like we heard in the last Tyrion chapter, he ordered them to stop making and replace with fishing ships or something.
There's got to be some new ones though, right?
Yeah, maybe it wasn't like the chain where he commanded everyone to switch production. Maybe it was just like half of you guys switch production type thing for the fishing boats. We didn't get all the details on that one, but yeah. I thought it was kind of funny too. So one thing is Cersei had a ton of not a ton, but a lot of people with her. I guess a ton.
Big host.
She's got Boros Blunt, Sir Balon Swan, Lord Giles Rosby, a new person, Helene, the pyromancer, I think. And then her new favorite, Lancel Lannister. And then in a second, Tyrion says that the captain of their guard, Valar, is there too with 20 more guards in.
The King's Guard isn't really guarding the king. Only half of them are.
Yeah, two of them here. Yeah. Boros and Balon.
Do we know the Lancel stuff?
Do we know Lancel?
Lancel was
Robert Squire that couldn't put his chest plate on.
No, Kyle does from the show.
Yeah.
What is it, Kyle? Go ahead. Show spoilers ahead if you haven't seen the show. What do you know?
Spoiler alert. Well, no, that they're banging.
Show spoiler alert.
Yeah.
What? They show that in the first season?
That might just be in the show only, I think, if I remember correctly.
I mean, he kind of like says something here. The queen's newest favorite, their cousin, Sir Lancel Lannister, her late husband, Squire, upjumped tonight at his widow's insistence.
Yeah.
Any reason why he would have been up jumped tonight?
I think we actually have got the answer to this in a previous Tyrion chapter, but I'll leave it to open air for a minute to I will give it if no one knows.
Because she's banging him.
Mm.
And well, no, isn't his dad doing like something with the army?
He was around when Robert died. He was like on that hunting trip, and he. Was
he's the one that killed him. Yeah,
not killed him, but gave
he got the
strongest wine.
Cersei admits that to Tyrion when Tyrion first shows up. So, yeah, I think that's what Jeff was alluding to. That might have had something to do with his rise in status recently.
And they're smashing.
Yeah,
I think that has something to do with it too.
Yeah. And they're totally fucking.
So we also get word that Renly is traveling up the Rose Road with a host of 100,000 strong.
Varys gave me the same report. Tyrion just has like a couple of witty comebacks here when Cersei's obviously not in a good mood. So Tyrion's basically, yeah, I know the same thing. Varys told us both. Cersei's pissed, and she says that he's gonna have 100,000 men by the time he gets here. Or that's how many that she's heard he's coming with?
Right. Yeah, maybe picking up more on the way.
Right.
And Tyrion's like, that sounds like a lot. I don't know about that.
Just some refreshers on the numbers we had last chat. We haven't really talked about the numbers too much this time, but like 20,000 was like Tywin's army, and then like 20,000-ish, 15,000 was like Jaime's. So like the biggest combined army was like maybe 35,000. If Renly's actually marching around here with 100,000 people, that's a fuck ton. It's a game changer. Yeah, if we're talking about the North, I think Rob started with like 18,000, 20,000,
like that,
and then he split them at the Twins, so he's with like 10 right now. So this is a big number compared to everybody else.
Do you think it's true?
I don't know.
Is it true?
Even if it's not true,
Tyrion seems skeptical himself.
Yeah, for sure.
That seems rather high.
But even if it's not true, like give him the benefit of the doubt and say like 60. You know what I mean? That's still
the biggest toast out there.
Yeah, so.
But Tyrion was like, he's not really moving that fast. He's like stopping to talk and eat with everybody along the way.
Yeah.
So slow your roll, Cersei.
And every time he does, more people come, is what Cersei says. It's like her bag. Like, that's how he's getting all those people, is he's stopping every place and more people are joining him.
But then Tyrion comes back with, well, like, if I were Renly, I would be smart and wait out this war right now. Like,
I don't know if he says that. Does he say that or just think that? And I feel like I quote this quote all the time. I see people on Reddit being like, Renly's an idiot. Why is he moving so slow? Just saying anything about like Renly like being a horrible like battle tactics because he's taking a really long time here. Like a lot of people get on Renly's back about this, like in the fandom, and I'm like, Tyrion literally says this is a really good idea for like, and people are like, Renly's like stupid or whatever. And I'm just like, Tyrion says it's a good idea. Come on.
Yeah, wait for Stannis to come
from. Tyrion does say this out loud.
He does? Okay.
He's like, our father at Harrenhal, Robb Stark at River Run, were I would do much as he is doing. Make my progress, flaunt my power for the realm to see, watch, wait. Let my rivals contend while I bide my own sweet time. If Stark defeats us, the South will fall into Renly's hands like a windfall from the gods, and he'll have not lost a man. And if it goes the other way, he can descend on us while we are weakened.
Yep.
I mean, that's just basic Call of Duty strategy right here.
Exactly. Any game
like anyone who gives you shit
man.
on the Reddit page, just tell them like, look, we're third partying. Exactly. Like Renly's trying to third party here. Like, grow up.
Yeah. One thing we did skip over really quick was Cersei gives herself a little pat on the back saying, if it wasn't for me, the red wines would be with them too. Luckily, I'm so smart and kept
those two here.
The red wines. And Tyrion's like, oh, too bad Loras Tyrell got away because he was here for the same tourney that the red wines were here for. Mm-hmm. So she says she wants Tyrion to make Tywin bring his army back, and Tyrion's like, no one can make Tywin do anything. Like, neither of us have ever been able to make our dad do anything.
Do you know who our dad is?
Yeah.
So fucking go get him then.
Yeah,
and almost in the same breath, when are we freeing Jaime? What do you plan on freeing Jaime?
And I thought this was another little funny comeback from Tyrion. She's like, when are we going to free Jaime? He's worth 100 of you. And he's like, don't tell Catelyn. We don't have 100 of me to trade. Like, Tyrion's like obviously not taking all of these concerns of serious. Like, Cersei's super seriously, at least in this moment. And she's like, there's people around. He's kind of like humiliating her in front of people.
And then she calls him useless and rides off.
Yeah, exactly. So Tyrion actually starts thinking about this to himself. He thinks out of Renly and Stannis, Renly's love, but Stannis is experienced, and he thinks that Stannis is much more dangerous.
Well, and just the lack of information, I think, about him kind of aids to that.
Exactly. Tyrion even says here he sent some fishing boats to Dragonstone to try and like do a little spying, and they haven't heard anything from him.
The only thing they've really heard is that there's pirates working for him from
the Senate warships.
Yep. By sea war galleys.
And he just mentions too, like if they both decide to attack at the same time, they'd be fucked.
Yeah, it's like Joff's head would be on the wall, and even worse, mine would be next to it.
Which we had talked about last time too. The pincher move kind of thing.
Exactly. And I will say that when we were in one of the chapters around Stannis, somebody had said that like he had commanded any boat that got within sight of the island not to be allowed to leave. So it makes sense where all Tyrion's spies are going. Or I don't know if he says they're Varys or whatever, but these people. So he gets to his solar. Podrick Payne's waiting outside, doing his usual shy pod thing, looking at Tyrion's belt.
He doesn't have it this time. He makes him look up, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he looks up for a second, and I think he looks back down
He's
again.
like, don't look at my codpiece, especially when I'm not wearing one, which is like, I looked up what codpiece was. It was just like a piece of clothing that like medieval people wore. It's basically like an athletic cup that actually is, but it's cloth.
It's cloth?
I think
is it like chainmail?
I think they probably had armor versions of them, but they also had cloth versions.
I actually just saw
like a banana hammock.
I saw a like TikTok video or like a stupid social media post like, look at this. This is what an actual suit of armor looks like, and it's just like a huge dick protector, like mounting off it like a full piece of
tons of different types of armor. Like if you're in jousting armor, it's made totally different. Like there's no protection. There's like the one arm is basically missing because you're gonna have a huge shield there, and then your other shoulder is just like it basically has a shield mounted onto the armor. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, that's where you get.
When it doesn't need the mobility and stuff.
You're just sitting there, exactly. But it's cool.
I think it was the evolution. Shit. I was watching a video. It was the evolution of armor as guns were getting better and better. Like at first, like they were wearing full armor with the dick piece, and then they were like, oh, well, at least we really only need to protect like our vital spots. Like so they turned to the chest piece, and then guns got so good it didn't even matter, so they just stopped wearing it. But
we get to Pod. He's just as shy as ever, sitting there, not looking Tyrion in the eye. That's the whole point. Tyrion asks who's here. He's like, someone's in the solar, my lord. And he's like, who is it? He's like, Littlefinger. I mean, Lord Peter, Lord Baelish, the Master of Coin. Tyrion's like, you make him sound a crowd, Pod. And then, so
I thought that was funny.
Tyrion hunches like he's like been hit, is what Tyrion says. Like he felt like hurt by this comment by Tyrion, and Tyrion even feels guilty about it. So then they go in. Littlefinger's chilling in there, sitting in a window watching our boy King
shooting crossbows,
trying to kill some hares, and he's losing.
Well, at least he's trying to get some food for the realm.
Yeah, right.
That's not really what he's doing, though, right?
If anything, he's taking food out of the realm for target practice. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're just commenting on how they literally watch him for a little bit, and every hare they release, he misses. And then
there are two dead ones that are dead or dying down there, though. But Tyrion does say there are spent corals strewn across the yard, like straw in the wind or something like that. So he's shot a lot. It only got two. And we see one or two get released. We do have one of the Kingsguard down there with him, Sir Preston Greenfield guarding him. And I think he's the one releasing these hares. And it says Joff hurries a shot on one of them and almost like actually hits Sir Preston, who's like releasing the hares.
Yeah, almost hits him in the balls, I think it says. Yeah, almost hits him in the groin. And then Littlefinger turns to Pod. He's like, do you have any pots? I mean, there's going to be a bunch of hares in the city, and you can make some stew with it.
Exactly. Tells him to invest in pots. So Tyrion basically says, Pod, you can leave if Littlefinger doesn't want anything to drink. And Littlefinger says, no, I'm good. I drink what the dwarf has said. And you wake up walking the wall. Black brings out men healthy pallor. So pallor,
shots fired.
Pallor means like paleness. That's a Game of Thrones word I had to look up.
Oh, is it a Game of Thrones word?
It's not a Game of Thrones word.
Pallor? Oh my God.
Pallor means paleness. I didn't know that.
How did you fail all your vocab quizzes?
We were math people.
Yeah.
So we get Littlefinger has the dagger. Right?
So real quick, after Littlefinger says that quote, Littlefinger says like, the wall isn't what I have planned for you. And then he tells him you're looking elegant. He's like, oh, you're looking very elegant today. We have another little quip from Littlefinger. He's like, oh, that you wound me, my lord. I strive to look elegant every day. And then, this is where we bring up the knife.
It's a dagger.
I have a few short quotes here. So Tyrion comments on Littlefinger's outfit. Like said, oh, you look good in purple. And then it goes into this quote. That's a handsome knife as well.
Is it?
There was mischief in Littlefinger's eyes. He drew the knife and glanced at it casually, as if he had never seen it before.
Valyrian steel and a dragonbone hilt. A trifle plain, though. It's yours, if you would like it.
Mine?
Tyrion gave him a long look.
No, I think not. Never mind.
He knows, the insolent wretch. He knows and he knows that I know, and he thinks that I cannot touch him.
Let's stop here real quick. We just talk because we get into some of Littlefinger's backstory. So this is just kind of first confrontation between these two directly. Tyrion's thought about it in some council chambers and stuff like that in the first couple chapters of this book.
Knife finally came back up.
Yeah. And Littlefinger, like, leans into it. You know what I mean?
Is he trying to pawn it off?
He's trying to get Tyrion to actually take it, like, on him now. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't even know
right.
if that. I think he's just kind of saying
or he's
it's
playing
yours.
with him. Exactly. He's just playing with him.
I
Isn't
told
this
people
your
it's
knife?
yours. Go fuck yourself. Yeah.
You're fucked.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it would be worse if Tyrion would end up like walking, like say Tyrion didn't know
That
and
cat,
he just started,
why Cat took
that
him.
cat-
that Littlefinger was
right.
behind why Cat took him.
and he's like, okay, yeah,
Which
I'll
is what
take
he
that.
knows.
And then he's like walking around like, holy shit, it was his dagger.
Yeah, but nobody else
do you
really
think he's
thought
gonna
that
run
besides
into
Cat,
anybody?
right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, do you think he's gonna run into somebody that's gonna be like,
Yeah.
that's the dagger that tried to kill?
Exactly. It wasn't like a lie that like Littlefinger was spreading to everybody. If anybody, it was just Cat and Ned who really knew
Let's
about
just
it.
That's what
say,
I'm saying.
like-
Yeah.
Let's just hypothetically say like there's a count or a meeting to talk peace, and Cat shows up and Tyrion shows
Yeah,
up
that wouldn't be good.
from each party, and it's
That
like,
would not be good.
you have the fucking dagger.
Yeah, exactly.
You're a liar. Let's get back to war.
Because Cat was starting to come over on Tyrion. They never got like an actual trial. In the
Yeah,
year,
for
they had
sure.
like the trial by combat, which I mean, obviously let Tyrion free, but that doesn't like give Cat proof like on one way or the other. So she's probably still questioning it in her head a little bit. But yeah, that would probably cement it. Like, yeah, fuck Tyrion. If he showed up to like a peace alliance with his dagger, it would not be good. Next thing I had was just some of this Littlefinger backstory. So, Glow narrator, you signed up for it.
If ever truly a man had armored himself in gold, it was Peter Baelish, not Jaime Lannister. Jaime's famous armor was but gilded steel, but Littlefinger, Tyrion had learned a few things about Sweet Peter, to his growing disquiet. 10 years ago, John Arryn had given him a minor sinecure in customs, where Lord Peter had soon distinguished himself by bringing in 3 times as much as any of the king's other collectors. King Robert had been a prodigious spender. A man like Peter Baelish, who had a gift for rubbing 2 golden dragons together to breed a third, was invaluable to his hand. Littlefinger's rise had been arrow swift. Within 3 years of his coming to court, he was master of coin and a member of the small council. And today, the crown's revenues were 10 times what they had been under his beleaguered predecessor, though the crown's debts had grown vast as well. A master juggler was Peter Baelish.
So this is like how Littlefinger got to where he is. We knew Littlefinger was like fostered at River Run. We knew that he knew like Cat and Lysa and Edmure when they were kids.
Right.
And we know he ends up here. We didn't really know like too much of his backstory, but we find out, I guess, like maybe it's not here. We might find out in the next one that Glow's going to read that like he came from a really small family and he basically distinguished himself. So sinecure is just like a very small, like unimportant role that's normally given to somebody just to elevate their status, but doesn't actually require any skills, right? So think about somebody like a politic. I'm sure you guys know tons of examples. I don't follow politics enough.
You become an intern and you work your way up through the system.
Exactly.
When you make your son a really high role just so he can put it on his resume, but then you give the actual duties to other people so he doesn't have to do anything type of thing. So yeah, Kyle, anything about the Littlefinger?
Yeah, I mean, so he's obviously conniving and, couldn't make money.
Intelligent.
That's true.
He had a plan, right? Or he at least...
Intelligent? I mean, is he? I don't think he's proven that.
I mean,
he
can make
rose from
money.
nothing.
I'll get into this.
And
I'll
make
give Glow
intelligent.
a reprieve and I'll read this next part. So
Being a shyster doesn't make you intelligent.
hold
I'm
on.
gonna throw that out
I'm just
there.
reading this next part of the quote. Oh, he was clever. He did not simply collect the gold and lock it in a treasure vault. No, he paid the king's debts and promises and put the king's gold to work. He bought weapons, shops, ships, houses. He bought grain when it was plentiful and sold bread when it was scarce. He bought wool from the north and linen from the south and lace from lice, stored it, moved it, dyed it, sold it. The golden dragons bred and multiplied, and Littlefinger lent them out and brought them home with hatchlings.
But
I think that is intelligent.
None of it was his money.
Doesn't
And
mean to
that's
make
the
your money to make
point.
you smart.
Right.
I don't think
He
that
knew-
makes you smart.
He knew how to get what he needed to get. I mean,
Yeah,
I
like he's
think that makes
I
you
think he's conniving and
prick.
clever. I think he's conniving and clever, but that doesn't mean he's stupid.
I didn't say he was smart or stupid.
You said he was unintelligent or not intelligent.
I just said that doesn't prove that he's intelligent. Is all I said.
It doesn't prove that he's not intelligent, though.
Yeah, it doesn't. That's what I'm
just
saying.
saying there's nothing conniving about buying grain when it's plentiful and selling bread when it's scarce, or buying wool from one place and selling it where they don't have it. Like that is just
With money that isn't his.
that's just a better understanding of economics than most people. People who have the money don't do this in this world. So sure, he doesn't have, it's not his money, but who gives a fuck? He's smarter than people who have access to equal money, is my
there's
point.
zero risk. That's what I'm saying. Like, this is not.
I see. Okay, I see how the
like, it's not his investment to make, and he's collecting money, and then he's making more. So now he's like, but he's proven his worth to the king because the king just sees more money coming in. But if he was losing money,
he's like a financial advisor.
I agree with you. I agree with you mostly now. I understand your point. There's no risk. So it's totally different than most individuals doing this. However, I will say that there is a risk for him. He doesn't start off as the master of coin. He starts off as literally a position that didn't mean like a sinecure, which if you Google it says like a position that's not really meant as an actual position. It's just a title.
He saw a way to get ahead.
He's in White Harbor. Like, he's not even in King's Landing. I don't know if it's clear from the quote that Glow read, but like, John Aaron gave him that position. Like, I'm pretty sure, like, not in White Harbor, in Gullstown, which is just like a harbor town in the Vale, right? And he's like doing so well in the Vale that he gets brought to court, and then like he's worked his way up the ladder. It's not like he was.
I mean, it seems like he's really good at his job.
100%.
Like, if his job is to take someone else's money and make more of it, I mean, he's got to be the best at it. And if, I mean, it's just true. It's like,
it's kind of what he's saying.
Me signing up for a retirement plan and be like, yeah, like, go invest it in some shit. And I hope that there's more there when I go to retire.
Littlefinger for sure. If you were trying to invest your money in Westeros, it seems like.
Except he's probably stealing some of it too.
So getting into the conniving part is the next bit of that quote. And in the process, he moved his own men into place. Keepers of the keys were all his, all four, and the king's counter and the king's scales were men he'd named. The officers in charge of all three mints: harbor masters, tax farmers, customs sergeants, wool factors, toll collectors, pursers, wine factors. 9 of every 10 belonged to Littlefinger. They were men of middling birth, by and large, merchant sons, lesser lordlings, sometimes even foreigners, but judging from their results, far more able than their high-born predecessors. So, again, he's like along the way of doing this, he's definitely greased the right wheels and put some money in the right pockets type thing, and he's helped himself out along the way. I think
it's greasing. Is it greasing pockets? Do you
grease pockets? Palms?
Greasing palms. There you go.
Filling pockets.
Whatever.
There's something like with pockets.
It's in my head. Somebody comment below and let us know what it is.
Pocket pool.
But yeah, he's obviously doing. I'm not saying he's the most like altruistic person. It's not my claim. I'm just saying, like, regardless of his motives, he gets like these middling people he puts in place. He gets results, right?
For sure,
he gets results.
Yeah,
that doesn't make him admirable or intelligent or anything. In my opinion.
I would never use admirable. I would say he's pretty fucking smart though.
Yeah, there's definitely a difference between admirable and smart.
I think conniving, con man,
conniving and intelligent.
All right, so this
like you have to be like somewhat intelligent for your conniving ways to work. I mean, you could be a bad conniver or whatever the noun would be, and none of it worked.
Like Dantos Holler isn't pulling this shit off. You know what I'm saying? Like the shit that Littlefinger pulled up. This is a stupid drunk ass.
The fucking drunk. That's a Jeff
like pantless guy.
It's like people like that are not pulling this shit off. Like, you got to have a head on your shoulders to pull this off. And the last part of this quote, Jeff, you want to take it? This is more about his backstory, where he came from, and so I think it's right after the quote that I just read.
No one had ever thought to question the appointment, and why should they ever? And why should they? Littlefinger was no threat to anyone. A clever, smiling, genial man, everyone's friend, always able to find whatever gold the king or his hand required. And yet, of such undistinguished birth, one step up from a hedge knight, he was not a man to fear. He had no banners to call, no army or retainers, no great stronghold, no holdings to speak of, no prospects of great marriage. But do I dare touch him? Tyrion wondered. Even if he is a traitor, he was not at all certain he could, least of all now. While the war raged, given time, he could replace Littlefinger's men with his own in key positions.
We're kind of talking about it all in circles, but he came literally from like nothing, like he said, barely above a hedge knight. And like Tyrion saying, he has so much power at this point that like Tyrion doesn't even know like how much power he has over him. Like, what could he really do to Littlefinger at this point?
Mm-hmm.
Just because because he just has so many, like, if you do that, I guess Tyrion's fear is I don't know what you call that.
I don't know what you're going for.
Like, all the people in those key positions now they're Littlefingers, if they just leave, your whole like
his network,
everything just falls apart. Like, literally everything falls apart. Like, how do you collect taxes now? How do you do any, like, all that shit that Tyrion was just talking about? Like, how do you manage any of that when all the people who used to be like
they're important enough that
are just gone now or whatever?
They keep the whole wheel rolling pretty much. They're keeping the city running.
They're the ones who, like, at the end of the day, do all the king's shit. Like, they get the taxes and then build his ships and all that shit. Yeah. And if you lose all those at the same time, then like you're in a little bit of a problem. I think is what Tyrion's fear is here.
Right. Well, he said like maybe like over time I can move one out and
replace him over time. Yeah.
So does he end up talking to? Oh, okay. So he goes into asking Tyrion or Littlefinger how close he was to the people of River Run. Or
yeah, they get into a little bit of this.
And the first thing he says is this like
I banged them both.
I was very close
banged
to
them
the
both.
girls.
Like what a just like a small dick answer. Like shut up,
So
you
Tyrion
fucker.
has, like-
Even if you did do it, like
Their maidenhoods. Is that close enough?
Tyrion mentioned this
Such a
to
little
Kat
cock.
before, didn't he? Like when he was captured by
I
Kat.
feel like somebody's talked about this.
I
for
feel
sure.
like he told Kat that like Tyrion goes around telling people at court that like he at least
Yeah.
slept with her. Maybe
and
not
she's
took her
like, no, that
maiden.
never
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah, that's what Kat says. Like, oh, I don't know about that. But here, Tyrion even thinks that he's like he was pretty sure Littlefinger was slime, but he said it with like such a just like
Such confidence.
in nonchalant, like just not like didn't give a fuck whether it was believed or not type thing. I guess is how Tyrion describes it. That like
he was like, man, did he
Kat
actually do it?
Here. Yeah. And I don't know if that was a Tyrion chapter that we got that in. Like maybe we don't know. Maybe Kat was lying. You know, if we're not inside our head in that chapter, probably.
That's
was a
what he
Tyrion
says.
chapter.
Like I know not to trust anyone anymore.
Yeah. So he's confused.
They don't love me. I doubt they'd listen to anything I have to say. Is this Tyrion? This is where I get into, and this is going to sidebar us a little bit, but this is where I get into how I hate George's writing of conversations. He doesn't say enough of who is speaking, and it drives me nuts. Like,
And
it's
you gotta like go back for
why
context
do I
clues
have
to
to
see who's
reread
talking.
like to the last like 6 chapter or paragraphs to find out the last time it says who's talking?
Yeah.
Drives me nuts. It's so dumb.
That doesn't. I mean, I guess it does.
Lord
I
Hoster's
definitely know
daughters
what you
do not
mean, for
love
sure.
me. Tyrion confessed. Done. Problem solved. Instead he used he confessed, and I have to fucking go back and read.
Yeah. I will say I take notes on all these chapters, and it's way faster to write he than a lot of these weird ass names. Tyrion's not a bad one, but like writing she instead of Daenerys is like I write LF for Littlefinger every time his name comes up in this chapter, just because then. But like pronouns are there for a reason, you know what I mean?
I get it, but I mean when you're writing a
No,
book
yeah, I
to
100% see
convey
your problem.
stuff to the reader.
Yeah, I'm
I
reading
think-
Dune right now, and I'm having the same problem. I don't really mind it because I feel like when I go back and reread it, I understand the conversation more anyway, and I understand who's saying what.
I do see what you're saying. Like the next 7 quotes,
They're just back
none
and
of them
forth.
say who actually says it.
Yeah.
I mean,
and
some of
it's-
them have
it-
context clues though. Tyrion like
I
literally
know,
got
but that's
captured
what
by
I'm
these
saying.
people,
You
and
have to, like-
Littlefinger's claiming to fuck them, and then the line says, "They don't love me." Like you can get the clue that Tyrion's the one saying that, not Littlefinger. You know what I mean?
Littlefinger
some-
could have said
but
that
sometimes-
too.
I
They
guess.
don't love
Right.
me
Yeah, yeah,
anymore.
you're right.
Sometimes it's like, that person says something, a little bit of like sidebar in his mind, and then that person starts talking again. And
Yeah, like I said, that's what drives you.
that's what I think is weird is when somebody says something, then there's a mind thought, and then it gets another quote, and then you're not sure if it's the same person or not. That's what can throw it off. And
Yeah, I know. what you're saying.
And Kaz said this
I agree
earlier
with you,
when we were
Kyle.
talking off camera too, that like sometimes when somebody has a long monologue, they'll be talking and then a new paragraph will start with quotes, but it'll be the same person. But like quotes start again and stuff, and you're like, why? Okay, there's like a whole new paragraph. It seems like another person, but it's not the same person. But yeah,
Yeah, you didn't need to do an end quote on the last paragraph.
Yeah.
exactly. So basically, Tyrion's saying, yeah, they don't like me. They like you better. The same proposal, if it came from both of us, would come much better if it came from you. And Tyrion's like,
he's like, I hope it's not for Sansa.
yeah, he's like, don't waste my time. He's like, depends on the proposal. Don't waste my time. Nobody's going to do Sansa, Jaime deal. That doesn't work. on either
Joffrey
end.
and Catelyn, neither of them are in.
Yeah, exactly.
He's like, well, I want Arya too.
Searching
To
is
give to
not
her.
finding.
So who has men searching? Tyrion?
That's what Tyrion says. Yeah.
Okay. And then
Littlefinger said it's
Littlefinger
not
searching
finding.
is not finding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably because
Okay.
he's, I assume Littlefinger's thrown his chips in
Searching
that.
as
It
well,
had
but-
tried, at least had
I
tried
mean,
to it originally.
I'm sure everyone's got.
Yeah. Maybe not anymore, but yeah, when it was a little fresher, people were probably all over looking for.
So we find out that Tyrion really wants to sway Lysa,
License at a cat, exactly, with a different offer.
and the offer includes giving her husband's
Michelle.
killer.
And the killer, yeah.
Tyrion sits up in the
Yes,
chair.
and
Yeah.
and a little bit of Marcella, a little bit of the young gun for Sweet Robin.
So he says
And
he'll.
Warden of the East.
So one of the things he says he'll do is call off the Klansmen because the Klansmen are attacking in the Vale now with actual steel
Oh.
weapons, right?
How did they
say
get
that?
all that armor and swords?
So here's my question: could Tyrion call these Klansmen off? Like his deal was, you save my life and I will armor you.
right.
I think he has some swing with him.
But didn't a lot of them come with
That's
him?
like-
Yeah, that's what
they
I'm saying.
continued on.
He has like 300, but like there's like
I
thousands
think he has
in
some
the
pull.
mount. But like this is their thing. Like for years and years, all they did, the
Is to
Klansmen
take
fought.
over the Vale.
All they did was fight the Vale. Like I don't think Tyrion's never met most of them. If a word comes in, oh yeah, this dwarf in King's Landing said that we're not supposed to do this anymore. Like I don't think that goes over with the Klansmen. It's like telling the
The
wildlings
dwarf that gave us all this armor and is going
If
to give us more
Shagga
gold.
tells them to stop, they might listen.
I guess, yeah, they'd have to have something good to give him back. But Tyrion's original promise was, "I'll give you this, the Vale of Aaron." It wasn't what, right? At least that's what he says in the show.
Yeah. Yeah. How about the Veil?
Yeah, he does say
I think
that.
he says that, not just armor, right? So it's kind of hard to go back on that. And Lannister always pays his
But I
debts,
think,
so.
like, to his point was like, I'm going to give you enough armor that you can go take over the
100%.
Veil.
But
Like, I'm not
Lannister
actually-
always pays his debts. That's all I'm saying. So I'm just wondering, like, his capability, if he could actually, how much sway he has over the Klansmen. I think he has a ton of sway over the Klansmen in the city that he has control over here, like Shagga and them. But I don't know if he's
Yeah.
like sending orders back home.
Right. So all he really wants is for her to swear fealty to Joffrey and put her
Join the
swords
war.
against Renly or Stannis.
He won't make her fight them. Fight the Starks or
Starks or
Tullys.
Tullys.
Yeah.
And then Robin can have the title of Warden of the East.
Yep.
And
Justice for
she
John
can have
Aaron. You said that.
Marcella to be
Ward until she
ward.
comes of age, and then I think
And
he
then
says
they can
marry.
marry.
Yeah, Sweet Robin.
boom.
Littlefinger's actually surprised by the last part, the
And
Marcella
he can
deal.
suck on her tit.
So Tyrion's like, "What does Cersei think of this?" And Tyrion shrugs, and
I don't
Littlefinger
fucking
starts
know.
laughing. Yeah. And
Not my problem.
he's like, "Oh, you're a dangerous little man. I could play along with this if I wanted to." Tyrion thinks about it, like, if you just remain silent, people often start to speak. Littlefinger does. He's like, "Well, what's in it for me then?" And Tyrion's just like, Harrenhal. And he thinks there's like Littlefinger comes from nothing, and then like Harrenhal is like super powerful. And Littlefinger tries not to look like fired up, but Tyrion can tell he's like excited. Like he likes this offer.
He's like, oh, but it's haunted. He like keeps trying to play coy.
Look at what happened
Yeah,
to
exactly.
Janice. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
He didn't even fucking make it there.
Yeah, and Tyrion's like, well, you can, if you want, you can just destroy the whole castle and build a new. You'll have enough gold since I'm going to make you the lead Lord of the Trident as well, which basically means like now the Tullys aren't in charge of all the, like, you're the new like head
You get all
house.
the money.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You collect
You get
taxes
the
from
tolls.
everybody else. Yeah, all that shit. He's like, because the Tullys are in rebellion, we need a new leader lord. So Littlefinger looked like a boy who had just taken a furtive bite from a honeycomb. He was trying to watch for bees, but the honey was so sweet. So Tyrion is like tempting Littlefinger here. He says this would make him one of the most powerful people in the kingdom. Like, why would you do this? And he's like, you helped us with the matter of succession. And Littlefinger's like, yeah, but so, meaning like you helped us with the whole Ned Stark deal. And Littlefinger's like, yeah, but so did Janos Slint. And he was also offered this castle, and look where he's at now. So, like, how do I know this is the same thing's not going to happen to me? And Tyrion's basically just like straight up, he's like, I didn't need Janos. I need you. Like, I didn't need him for this slice of shit. I still need you. And Littlefinger, it seems okay with that answer. Like, okay, cool, I'll take it. Littlefinger's probably thinking to himself, I can keep myself useful. You know what I mean?
Right. And just like, even if Littlefinger, like, he is playing the game a little bit better than Janos. Like, Janos wasn't ever playing. He was a
Pawn,
piece.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, well, then he's like, well, you realize I might have to bang her again, right?
Yeah. And he brings up this Ned quote, or the quote from that Ned chapter that I think I brought up in the chapter a few ago. He says, when you sleep with ugly women, best to just get it over with, right? And tells that quote from the Ned chapter. And he also had said, like, I'd rather have you and Harrenhal than Renly on the throne as part of why he's doing this, because like this will help me win the war, and I'll give people shit if they help me do that.
Doesn't really hurt me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
So Littlefinger's like, okay, I'm in. Give me a week. I need a week to get ready, and then I'll leave for Goldtown. And he gets up.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Fortnight. Yeah, 1 fortnight. My bad. And he thanks Tyrion. He's like, this should be mutually profitable. And then Tyrion thinks to himself, too. And then we pretty much get right into the next meeting with Varys.
where I had to go back and I was like, he said one before or after Pycelle, right? I was this I know now, but I had to like search back. It was like, it's like his plans are working, essentially, is what he's trying to say, or at least he thinks they are.
Yeah, well, I think
he's
the
like
point is
checking it off the list.
Yeah,
like,
I think at that point,
right,
there's like some
guy.
connection, I guess, between these two things. Like,
Yeah.
So we're getting into this Varys one. Basically, he just goes up to his room, waits for Varys, and Varys comes right away. Tyrion's happy about it because then maybe he had time for a late night shuffle piece to Shays Mance.
Oh, shuffle.
So
Sometimes the late night shuffles are the best.
go ahead.
Sometimes you just got to shuffle and go to bed, though.
I'm too old for that word. Was
It's just a word
It's a
we used in
college thing.
college where somebody left the dorm for the night to go stay at their
If
girlfriend's
you went
room.
to, yeah, if you went to get,
Where's Jeff? Oh, he's shuffling. So yeah, Jeff, take us into this quote. Or not the quote, but just like take us into this, like what's going on here.
what's going on?
When
All
Varys
right, so
shows up.
Varys was coming to his bedchamber. He was
Yeah,
already at his bedchamber, right?
He meets him in Tyrion's bedchamber. Yeah. I like how
he
Tyrion's
already
on that.
knows too.
Tyrion's on another level with Varys. We're like, oh, we're cool now. You helped me sneak out of brothels and shit. We can meet in my bedroom, not in my solar.
Not in my solar.
Yeah.
So it's almost immediate talk of the letter to Doran, right?
They're talking
And-
about Pycelle. He's like, oh, you made like I can't believe you made the maester squirm like that. You're so cruel. Yeah. It's like you know that Pycelle can't abide a secret.
Raven Black.
Yeah, is that a crow? Raven Black. Saying Pycelle can't abide a secret. That's when Tyrion says that. And so this, yeah, like you said, Jeff, they start getting into it. Like, does Varys know about this letter? Like, he knows of the letter for sure. Like, does he know the contents of it? Doesn't seem like it. Seems like a lot of speculation on Varys' part, like coming up here, right?
Well, yeah,
That's what he says. All this is obvious. Like, of course, this is what I did.
Yeah, so hold on, you're jumping a little bit. What's Varys said before that? He's like, he's taking
So,
guesses.
I
at
mean,
what's in the letter,
Varys
right?
is so good at like putting two and two together, if you would say, that he definitely knows like what was in the letter. He has to.
At least like
Well, he knows the
the
gist of
the
it. That's
gimmies.
what's
He knows these
that's
first
what we're
things.
kind of
Yeah,
going over here. Dornishmen, they're not really kind of involved in the wars, but they call their banners, but
So-
not really, and they hate Lannisters.
So
but
why do they hate Lannisters? Let's get to that, Kyle. We haven't really heard much from the Martells yet.
We've heard about this multiple times, though.
Martells
Yeah,
are cool.
this
Jeff
has been
likes
brought
it.
up.
We've definitely heard about it, but like normally it's not related to the Martells when they talk about it. Do you know what we're talking about?
I
Kyle?
forget, man.
So Rhaegar's wife
They
was a
bring it
Martell.
up in this chapter,
Yeah,
don't they?
I think they mentioned it. Rhaegar's wife was a Martell. So when Rhaegar's wife and children were
Oh,
murdered,
that's right. And
that was an affront to them, right? They were
It
basically
was Tywin's dog.
yeah.
when what happened?
When Rhaegar's wife and children were murdered, when
Oh, when
King's
murdered,
King's
okay.
Landing was sacked, yeah, that was like an affront to the Martells, basically. Like obviously that was an affront to everybody, but like Robert, like or not Robert, fucking Aerys, the king, who's like or I guess Rhaegar and
Yeah.
Aerys are both dead, so they're not taking affront to that. The people who are still alive and like expected to just like go on in this kingdom just saw their like it's Doran's sister, I think. Elya's, I think they say that Elya's sister.
Yeah.
Like so, his sister and niece and nephew just got like brutally murdered, and he just
And
knows to
raped.
just be like, okay, cool with it. You're my new king, like, which is basically what happens.
Nah,
yeah.
fuck that.
So that's why there's kind of been they're walking on thin ice, I guess, since then. Like the relations between the Martells and the Lannisters, or just like the crown in general, hasn't been great. So that's why some of this stuff is obvious to Varys, I guess, right? So, because some of the stuff that they're saying is basically just like justice for that, kind of like Lysa, they're giving Lysa justice for John Aaron. Here, they're giving Doran justice for
past
his sister.
misdeeds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, what else? What else does Varys, I guess, pry at? Or maybe Tyrion just gives some of it up at this point.
He says, the only piece is what you might have offered for his allegiance. Prince is sentimental. He still mourns his sister. He says, my father never let sentiment get in the way of ambition. And somebody just kind of left the council here, so we might have a spot for him.
Yeah. So that's one. Seat on the council.
Promise
Promise.
Gregor Clegane.
Promise of the daughter's killer, alive or dead. And this is where they get into talk of who that is. And Varys like, oh, I heard a little secret. And Tyrion's like, it's not a secret if everybody knows. It's like it was Gregor Clegane. I think we've even heard this
Yeah.
before, right?
Yeah,
Mountain.
they've mentioned that
Yeah.
it was the mountain.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the Hound, maybe.
We get a brutal
Yeah.
deed here that it's rumored he raped her with her son's blood and brains still on his hands. That's
Yeah.
absolutely ridiculously fucked up.
Yeah.
And Varys, good.
Well, and then just a Tywin quote, I think, which it might not be next, but it was about the 50,000 Dornishmen.
Yeah,
I don't know if
yep.
it's now or later. 50,000 Dornishmen are worth one rabid dog.
Yeah, so when Tyrion says, I'm going to give him the mountain, Varys is like, yeah, that's your father's man. And Tyrion's like, yeah, my father will be the first to tell you that 50,000 men in an army is worth Gregor Clegane, pretty much. He's like, what if he wants the blood of the Lord who gave the command and not just the knight who did the deed? And he's like, Robert was the king. All order stemmed from him.
Yeah, and he did.
And
It's kind of a cop out though. Like I don't
Varys
know
knows
that.
that. Varys says Robert wasn't at King's Landing, and what Tyrion says is neither was Doran Martell, which is just like, I guess like we can get away with a few things here because he doesn't know better, but
Yeah, or even like he wasn't here protecting him.
Yeah.
So he kind of bears a brunt of it as well, or some of it.
all right.
So the next part is like Varys knows he's giving one of the kids.
I had this part as a quote.
So, blood for his pride, a chair for his ambition, golden land, that goes without saying, a sweet offer, that sweets can be poisoned. If I were the prince, something more would I require before I should reach for this honeycomb. Some token of good faith, some sure guard against betrayal.
Varys smiled his slimiest smile.
Which one will you give him, I wonder?
Tyrion sighed.
You know, don't you?
Since you put it that way, yes. Tommen, you could scarcely offer Marcel to Doran Martell and Lisa Arryn both.
Remind me never to play these guessing games with you again. You cheat.
Prince Tommen is a good boy.
If I pry him away from Cersei and Joffrey while he's still young, he may even grow to be a good man.
And a good king?
Joffrey is king.
And Tommen is heir should anything ill befall his grace. Tommen, whose nature is so sweet, notably tractable.
You have a suspicious mind, Varys.
I shall take that as a tribute, my lord. In any case, Prince Doran will hardly be insensible of the great honor you do him. Very deftly done, I would say. But for one small flaw.
Ha!
The dwarf laughed.
Named Cersei?
What avails statecraft against the love of a mother for the sweet fruit of her womb? Perhaps for the glory of her house and the safety of the realm, the queen might be persuaded to send away Tommen and Marcella, but both of them, surely not.
What Cersei does not know will never hurt me.
And if her grace were to discover your intentions before your plans are right?
Why?
He said.
Then I would know the man who told her to be my certain enemy.
And when Varys giggled, he thought, 3.
Yikes!
All right, Kyle. So here's like the kind of the end all of Tyrion's plan. What do we got? What are you getting out of this?
Well, I mean, so like he's... What do you mean, what is this plan? Like
Do you know, like, what's he doing when he says, like, 1, 2, 3?
Yeah.
Well,
You
he's
know?
getting these 3 people on board. Is what he's trying to do. Like the other plans aren't really super important. He's more concerned with the 3 of them. This other stuff and getting them to buy into these outlandish plans or like these crazy plans or what his main goal is. That's how I read it, at least. And I mean, I could be very wrong, and you could tell me I'm wrong, whatever. But
I think you're on a good track there. But the one thing is, you can't just say that they're all completely false because like one of them's a letter that's on the way to Doran. So like there's something that's going to Doran, right?
Well, I mean,
There's a blank
Littlefinger's
letter.
going to the Vale, too.
Well, Tyrion could stop that within 2 weeks if this was like just a fake plan in order to like see how Littlefinger would react. If that's what you're saying, Kyle.
no, I'm not even saying that. I think he's promising these 3 like positions and riches and reasons to believe him and buying them essentially
Gotcha.
more so than he's buying Lisa Arryn. Like, I mean, those things are happening or potentially happening, but like I think his main goal is Littlefinger, Pycelle, and Varys.
Gotcha.
I mean, he didn't really promise anything to Varys or Pycelle, though.
But it's one of those things where if you help out Tyrion, you know
he
you're on
told
the right
Varys,
side.
he said, if my plan gets fucked, I know it was because of you. Is what. So like he's kind of, you know, essentially taking him.
Well, he says, if my plan gets fucked, I'll know the man who told her to be my certain enemy. So, like, I think
That's
you're
what I'm
right.
saying.
Varys is included in that, but not just Varys, right? That goes to Pycelle and
Who else would tell her?
Pycelle or Littlefinger, right? Those are the people who know these things. He's counting off 1, 2, 3.
Well, some of them, but I think what he meant was like to discover your intention before your plans are. Yeah, I guess you're right. I guess it's all 3. But I just thought it was the conversation he was having there.
Yeah,
When I was reading it.
gotcha. All right, next chapter's Arya. Do we have anything to talk about this one? I mean, Tyrion does a lot of stuff.
Sansa next, bro.
Sansa, yeah.
Yeah, you silly salamander.
Tyrion plants a lot of seeds in this one. So some of them will
I mean,
come
it
to
got a
fruit.
little
Some
more
won't.
exciting while we were reading through here and like
Yeah.
kind of discussing the plans, but it still was kind of like I don't know. It was like one of those like just a lot of moving parts.
Yeah,
like
I think
said.
you're right. This will be a chapter that, like, as future chapters happen, you'll like come back and be like, oh, I see
Yeah,
where this came from.
and-
Thing.
Well, Kyle, what do you think the reactions are to Tyrion's plans? Do they stay a secret? Do they get out?
Well, I mean, from what I've learned, everything gets out here. But so I think Lady Lady Aaron is not going to be happy about it.
She could just say no, right? It's an offer to her.
What's that?
She could just say no. It's an offer to her, right?
But I mean, like, Littlefinger's going to try and go bang her and all that stuff. And like, that's kind of
she
weird.
might want that.
She might. She didn't seem like it, at least from what I could understand. But, I mean, Littlefinger's up for it. Obviously, he doesn't care. And then,
he's just gotta
what about
close his eyes
Dorne?
and
You don't really know
over
much about Dorne.
You
but
said a prediction earlier. We'll wait on Dorne for a second. You said a prediction earlier that I'll just go back to when Tyrion took the jar. You were saying that you think it's maybe some strangler.
well, now I do.
Okay.
Who's
I
he
thought
using
it
for?
was at first, but then once you said the Tears of Lys was the one that was for what's his name?
John Aaron.
But yeah, I think he's got something that he's going to try and maybe off somebody, or
I mean, that's a good
make it
prediction.
look like somebody else off somebody.
Yeah.
I
would say it's a good prediction just because we haven't heard of a ton of poisons, right? And most of the ones we have heard of, if not all of them, are in this list, except for maybe the Strangler. So,
and
makes sense.
And it's one of those things that like, what was I gonna say?
Like they went into a lot of detail of it in the first.
No, not even that. So I guess what I was gonna say is like it could be not even a poison, and like it could, like you've talked about this before. Like George likes to write this way so that it confuses the reader, and
He
so
just
like
took
maybe
some Tums off because he had an upset tummy.
yeah, maybe he listed all these poisons and it wasn't actually a poison. But
Antibiotics
I mean,
fucking.
if I wasn't
venereal
reading it with
disease.
you, I would have assumed it was a poison. How's that?
I still think it's a good assumption. I'll say that.
Yeah. No, I think so as well. But that's kind of what I'm getting at with that point. But I think as well, like he kind of needs something to keep Pycelle in check.
Yeah.
And I think having his poison and being able to use it for something and point it back to Pycelle is a way to keep him in check. Because he didn't really offer Pycelle anything. He was just kind of like, yeah, we're buddies, right? Like, yeah, you're in on this secret.
He was
like,
mostly
yeah,
threatening with Pycelle, yeah.
But
Yes.
I'm not going to tell you the secret, so.
Yeah.
We're
So
not really
I think that was kind
that
of,
close.
it's insurance against him.
Yep.
But
All right.
Cool. Well,
right,
good
Cal.
chapter. I liked it. We'll get into the next one. Sansa. It's a much shorter one. We'll see you in that one.
All right, cool.
Bye,
See you later, Cal.
Bye,
Cal,
Cal.
make sure you like and subscribe and comment and go on our Discord.
Yeah.
all right, later, nerds.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
See you later, Cal. It's great hanging out, bud. We'll see you on the next episode for Sansa 2. Can you guys confirm that?
Sansa 2, yeah.
Sansa
Confirmed.
2. Oh,
Sansa
yeah.
2.
Too
But
much
now,
of that girl and I'll go home.
It's a good one. It's
If you
Dantos.
guys are still listening, please make sure you like, subscribe, comment, follow our Discord, do everything. We have some images on Discord. Our YouTube has maps and whatnot, so make sure you follow those and like those.
One thing I
What?
don't know how Discord works. If anybody knows, give me tips in the Discord. But secondly, if you join the Discord, if you're in this part, you definitely know the spoilers. So if you're in the Discord, message anyone who's on the podcast, me, Jeff, Glow, or Kyle, and we'll add you to just like in the Discord. Say, hey, add me to the spoilers, and then we'll add you into the spoilers.
Kyle shouldn't be able to do that. He doesn't even know the
he
spoilers.
can't look at them, but he can add people to the spoilers. Yeah.
Interesting.
Nice.
So there's 2 spoiler channels, one for just show and one for all the book stuff. So if you know either of those, go ahead. And we can talk about anything that Kyle shouldn't see in the Discord, put it in those channels.
Yes.
All
But
right. Let's get
following
back.
that, onto the spoiler section for Tyrion 4. Boys, what are your hot takes?
Let's get down the brass tacks here.
Speaking of spoilers, there's a lot in this one.
Is it spoilers or just like a lot of stuff that we find out
Let's
about?
just go with like some basic stuff. The night they see in the yard, Sir Tallard. What happens
Don't
with him?
remember him. Don't recall.
He ends up being one
Sounds
of
like
the ones.
Bronn gets killed.
He's one of the ones who ends up being like with one of Marjorie and gets accused of like the whole Marjorie deal, where like Marjorie and her cousins are fucking a bunch of people. He's one of the people accused of fucking Marjorie or her cousins, and he gets like put in jail and is probably like being tortured by Qyburn at the end of where we're at right now.
Oh, yikes.
Yeah, so not good for it. He doesn't end up in a good spot.
I mean, if he actually
he ends
got a
up being like
chance
a
at Marjorie, maybe it was worth it.
Well, the thing is, he ends up being like
Seriously.
a Tyrell. Yeah, well, he ends up being like a Tyrell knight. So like kind of what Bron's saying here, I might have to end up fighting here. Him and Tyrion's like, don't worry about it. Like he's on our side. Like he ends up on the Tyrell side, and like the Tyrells are kind of against the Lannisters. There's no like open conflict between them.
Is
yet,
it like when Marjorie's with Joffrey though?
So
like,
you guys probably don't remember this, but like Cersei concocts up this whole scheme about how Marjorie's been fucking all those people. It's probably not true.
No,
right?
I remember it. Like I remember talking about it just with you, and you're like, oh my god, Cersei thinks she's like such a genius, and like her plan actually stinks, type of shit.
The whole problem with her plan was she gave power to the Faith, who then turned that power on her because she is doing things against the Faith. But yeah, like her whole original plot against them is basically like she hears that basically Marjorie and her cousins are flirts, and they like to hang out with a bunch of like the young knights and stuff because they're young girls, right? And whether it's true or not, but Maester Pycelle was taking moon tea to Marjorie's tower, and if he was, it's like almost 100% not for Marjorie. It was for one of her cousins, like to make sure one of her cousins doesn't have children. But Cersei takes that and uses that as proof and makes Pycelle basically say that he was giving it to Marjorie, I think. Mm-hmm. But it's like almost 100% confirmed that he was not giving it to Marjorie. Marjorie wasn't guilty of these things. It was, if anything, her cousins were, and Marjorie just got wrapped up into it. But yeah, this guy just is involved with that later on.
All right, let me, I just want to say one thing, and then I want to just kind of, the sweet count was crazy.
Yeah, crazy.
In this chapter. I'm not even going to mention, there's so many of them.
One page.
The part where Joffrey is shooting rabbits, and I just thought it was a little bit convenient that last chapter we talked about the wild hares.
Yeah, I caught that too when I reread this today. I didn't catch that when I was taking notes on this, but I reread this chapter before the podcast.
I did.
And I caught the hares thing. I was like, what does it have to do with it? But like, there's no relation.
Yeah.
Like the wild hares get wiped out by Theon in like a chapter or two, but it is weird.
So I was like, man, like why rabbit? Like why not like...
Yeah, bunnies, rabbits, anything, but they said hares.
So,
I'll give another quick one. I never realized this was before. What we'll get into a deeper part of this later. What kills Jon Arryn? Well, what poison?
Nightshade.
I said it in this chapter with talking to Kyle.
Tears of Lys. And
who puts the poison? Who gives him the poison?
Lysa.
Tears of Lysa. I mean, it's like Lys and Lysa.
Yeah, but Lisa's like a country.
I'm just saying that has to be on purpose. And like I never realized. I mean, not that like it's a dead giveaway, but there's definitely a parallel.
How about like the statue in the Vale? Isn't it a crying lady, or the mountain is a crying person?
Yeah, it's like Alina's tears or something like that.
So tears in the Vale.
Oh,
tears
dude, you're
of
right.
rice.
Yeah, I think they even call it the tears. Dude, you're probably right. I didn't never got that either. That's a good catch, Jeff.
That's pretty neato burrito.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that it was like a cool parallel to Lysa. That's a good one, Jeff. I think that you might be onto something there.
They were telling us that it was the Vale the whole time that killed Jon Arryn.
There you go. So next, Tyrion takes this jar. This is more of a question for you guys. Let's see if you guys remember what happens with this jar. What is this?
I don't remember the name of it.
I don't remember. I don't remember at all. Fuck.
So basically, go ahead.
I just remember it gets brought up against them in the trial, saying that Pycelle's like, yeah, I do have a missing vial, and it just so happened to be Strangler or whatever.
I don't think it's a Strangler. I think in the trial, Pycelle brings up that Tyrion went through his potions, but I think.
But how would he know? He wasn't there.
Tyrion goes through his potions when he comes. So Pycelle is the one who spills the beans, right? We'll get into like the big spoiler in this chapter.
Cersei comes and is like, my daughter's not going to Dorne.
Exactly. Yeah. And Tyrion knows it's Pycelle. He goes and cuts off his beard, throws him in the black cells. At that point, Tyrion rifles through his potions, and I think Pycelle's in front of him when he does it. And that's the thing that Pycelle brings up at the trial. Gotcha. This, I think, might even get used before Tyrion goes back to see Pycelle. I'm not sure. This is just a potion.
Is Shay pregnant?
I forget what it is, but I forget what it's called. But all it is like something to give Cersei diarrhea. It's like a laxative for Cersei so that she doesn't make it to the council one day. There's like one day where Tyrion wants to do a bunch of shit, and he gives Cersei this poison to give her the shits, and he just like does a bunch of shit while she has the shits. That's what he's grabbing here.
I do remember that. I forget what he tries to get done, but I definitely remember that.
Yeah, it's got to be in a chapter or two. But yeah, that's what it is. It's funny because what Kyle said is like, we get the whole Joffrey thing, right? Like the whole Joffrey murder, Tyrion's a suspect, Strangler.
Yeah. Does he know that? Does he know the Purple Wedding?
I don't think so, but I think he'll think about this when that happens. Because I mean, I don't know. Yeah. He'll probably remember the Cersei pooping thing because it's kind of funny. But yeah, that's what that is. So let's go. I want to keep covering some of the smaller ones before we get into the big one.
All right, I just have a quick question before we go on spoilers. So the one thing. We might have talked about it before. Why is he called the Prince of Dorne? when there's 7 kingdoms. It's not the Prince of Winterfell. Like Rob wasn't the Prince of Winterfell, or Eddard wasn't. So that's why I'm a little confused.
Yeah. So when Aegon took over the 7 kingdoms,
Dorne he didn't take over Dorne, but
Dorne wasn't part of it.
Still be the king.
It took like way longer, like 200 to 400 years longer for Dorne to come into the realm. And one of the concessions they made when they're like, yeah, we'll pay you taxes and we'll do all these other things that pretty much make us equal to the other 7 kingdoms, but we are allowing these few things. Like women are still gonna in Dorne, women are still gonna be able to hold offices of power, right? Like succession, I don't think in Dorne doesn't matter if you're a man or woman, right?
Yeah.
So they were allowed to keep their own set of laws locally and stuff, like to a higher extent than the other kingdoms. And one of those things was just that they're allowed to style themselves as prince or princess instead of lord or lady. So that's why they call them that.
So they could be the Prince of Winterfell if they wanted to be.
I guess like if they would, like at the time when Aegon was taking over, if they would have been like, oh, I'm only bending the knee to if you let us call ourselves prince and princess, he probably would have been like, yeah, sure, dude, whatever. You know what I mean? It's probably how it would have gone. But I think that's basically what it amounts to in Dorne. It's not like they actually are more powerful or anything.
Okay.
That's a good question now.
But go on.
Tyrion and just in general make some good short-term plans. Right, pretty much all the scheming with these people, good short-term. But all the rapid-fire stuff with Bronn, pretty much not good.
All right, so
I think the Riverlands one, the one dude was
Riverlands is okay.
What does he do to the Riverlands? Does he talk to him?
Basically, he says we'll talk to you tomorrow, but it'll be good to have like an inside man in the Riverlands is what he says.
I don't know.
I don't remember if anything
he
comes
set him
of
up
it.
with a nice suite.
Yeah.
He gave him boots and like making sure he's well fed.
Mm-hmm. I don't remember if anything comes of that. But like the money, the debt becomes a big problem. Like
that was one of my notes.
It's something that probably doesn't become a problem because like the Lannisters don't last long enough to suffer it. I guess they do, right? They last like the whole they're still in power, right?
We don't know them not lasting.
And what happens later on in books 4 and 5? In the Stannis chapters, we have Tytos Nestoric or whatever his name is, which is the envoy for the Iron Bank. They're basically backing Stannis in the whole northern. They're backing all that northern shit because they're done with the Iron Bank. Mm-hmm. And like I said earlier,
all the Littlefinger's plan, though, right?
That's part of Littlefinger's plan. Again, like we're not going to get into all that because first off, I don't have a lot prepared. There's a lot of trickery that goes on there, but the basis of it is Littlefinger wants to keep the crown in debt so that later, when lesser lordlings, particularly in the Vale, are in debt, because the crown is one thing, but the lesser lordlings as well. When everyone's in debt, all the houses take loans from the Iron Bank, right? Not just the crown. The houses have individual loans from the Iron Bank as well. Okay. So Littlefinger's, I think, general plan is if he can get the crown into so much debt that the Iron Bank wants to call back that debt, and the crown defaults, what happens? Then the Iron Bank has to pull back all their other debts, or not all of them, but some of their other debts, in order to sustain since the crown isn't paying its debts. So when all these lesser houses,
the crown says they're bankrupt, we're not paying you. They're going to
go like, well, we need money.
They're going to go to the Jimmy and Joe's to be like, all right, well, you need to pay us now.
At least some of it. Give us some of it back because we don't have any money. The Iron Bank's fucking us, and we need to be able to fund an army, the Golden Company. Right,
to fuck up the crown.
To go fuck up the crown. And then the lesser lords, if they can't do it, if they can't repay their loans, then it's super easy to go fuck them up. They don't need the Golden Company. They can send like a way smaller army to go fuck up the lesser houses. But Littlefinger knows that what instead will happen is the lesser houses will get their loans called back, and who's going to be standing there willing to help them? Littlefinger will pay off all their loans and take over those loans. So now they're in debt to Littlefinger, and now Littlefinger owns the Vale or all the whatever he owns this. So that's the thought of Littlefinger's plan: is keep the crown in debt to the part that once the Iron Bank starts calling in those loans, when Iron Bank calls in its loans, that's what gives Littlefinger power, because that starts to give him more control over the lesser houses, right? And guess what's happening in this chapter?
He's getting them in more debt.
The Iron Bank's calling in their loans. So who is gonna not give them a single cent and Littlefinger's not gonna make the situation any better, right? He's gonna keep this debt as bad as possible. And what does Tyrion do? Send the Iron Bank guy to Littlefinger.
Which doesn't make sense to me. Like he even says later on in the chapter when he's describing Littlefinger and how he got in power, is even though he's in power and he's making money for the crown, we're still in a shit ton of more debt than we were before.
He doesn't really
understand why he sent him.
So that is a little confusing.
More about that later.
So Tyrion's making money. Where's he putting the money? Just into more
Tyrion?
stuff? He just keeps, or Littlefinger. He's
Littlefinger,
just buying more stuff with the money they're making instead of paying their debts off.
Exactly.
Basically.
They own property. They own like assets instead of like liquid money. I think is mostly what Tyrion's saying.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then we do find out like later that like in one of the Jaime chapters, we find out there's like 20 like jailers on guard and like 15 of them have never showed up to work, but they're getting paid.
Well, that's Varys, isn't it?
No, well, I think it's little. I think people think it's little. We hear a lot of stuff about
Littlefinger's just greasing his own pockets.
Well, now that he's bringing in money, if he wants to keep the crown in debt, money has to go out. So he's kind of just like giving it away, greasing his pockets,
he's
giving it to the right people. But
what's it called?
Also has a way to
he's money laundering. He's money
exactly.
laundering.
He's money laundering.
He's faking the books.
No, I think money laundering is more about like making it look legal tax wise. But he's just like, what comes in has to go out, or I look like a bad guy at the end of the day. You know what I mean?
So
but then if he ever needs
money for
he
his,
just stops the outgoing and it just comes in directly to him. Kind of.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's laundering money.
Yeah. So there's some of the Littlefinger debt stuff that goes on here for sure. So in terms of the maidenheads, the cat and Lysa stuff, does Littlefinger take both their maidenheads?
No, just Lysa's. No, he was so drunk that.
Why does he say this lie like that then?
Because he doesn't know. He was so drunk that he thought he banged both of them.
He thinks he took both their maidenheads, exactly. Which is interesting here because he doesn't think he's lying, which is why Tyrion thinks that he's not lying because he doesn't think he's lying. Which I just think is like a cool. There's so many levels.
Remember. How did the story actually go? So like,
basically, he got super drunk and fucked Lysa. But was whispering
Lysa like snuck into his bed, I think. Lysa snuck into his bed and fucked him.
Exactly, but he's like whispering cat or something.
And then Tyrion just like, or Tyrion, I keep saying Tyrion, Littlefinger just fucked Lysa like normally then too.
Yeah, later on, just fucked her and thought that was like him fuck. He thought he fucked cat when he was drunk. Thought he fucked Lysa just later on when he actually fucked Lysa, right?
He probably fucked Lysa multiple times. Like it's not like they were like a thing almost.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I just thought it was interesting. There's so many layers to the Tyrion Littlefinger thing. There's first that, then I think is even juicier when Tyrion tells Littlefinger like, I'm gonna give Lysa her Jon Arryn's murderer, and Jon Arryn's murderer is Littlefinger and Lysa. Yeah, and it even says like Littlefinger sits up in his chair and like gets interested, but on like what Tyrion's gonna say next, like. What the fuck are you?
But Tyrion doesn't know, right?
Tyrion doesn't know.
So who does Tyrion think it is?
I have no
Renly?
idea.
Or?
Like they don't really follow. Like Tyrion doesn't really follow up on this in this conversation. Like how he's gonna, like maybe Cersei.
The murderer's right there.
Yeah, but it's Littlefinger the whole time.
He definitely thinks it's Cersei.
Cersei makes sense, right? That's who I would think, right? It's who everybody thinks.
That's who he probably thinks it is. Yeah.
I just thought that was so juicy. Tyrion's like, I'll give you Jon Arryn's kill. And Littlefinger's like, Littlefinger sits up in his chair, and I'm like, Tyrion. Tyrion thinks he's just playing all these people. And he, for the most part, he is. But like, at least
I mean, he's like winning this. Like,
I mean, they're playing each other.
Yeah,
you know,
he wins like this one match.
Yeah,
I think he really only plays Pycelle. I think Littlefinger is way too smart. I don't know what Kyle's getting.
Doesn't Littlefinger get pissed off at him later on though? He's like, dude, you promised me this shit.
You promised me Harrenhal. Do this. Exactly. He was hyped for Harrenhal. Also important. But what's the next chapter? I told you guys earlier. Sansa Dantos. Why does Dantos come to Sansa right now? Because Littlefinger thinks he's leaving in 2 weeks.
He's leaving. Yeah.
Well, guess what happens? Littlefinger gets told he's not leaving in 2 weeks, and then I guarantee you, at some point, Kyle's going to be like, "What is the point of this?" Sansa doesn't go anywhere for like a book, 2 books. Feast of Crows is when they leave. This is the beginning of Clash of Kings. 2 books. Sansa deals with Dantos. Kyle's at some point in the next 2 years of us podcasting this. Kyle's going to be
Dantos
like, "What was the point of this Dantos thing?"
Dantos is the most annoying. Like he called what's the like story he always references? I'm your Florian. I'm your like shut the fuck up, you fool. No wonder you're a fucking fool.
Yeah, it's just I think it's just funny how George even thought of that. Like he could have made the Dantos thing start like halfway through Storm of Swords and then finish up in Feast, and it makes sense. But no, because like this is when Littlefinger would have done that, because this is when Littlefinger thinks he's going to the Vale. It's just I don't know. I love it all. I just read
that chapter and I didn't even think of that. That's fucking brilliant.
Yeah. I think I have another one. So there's a quote where George R. R. Martin has said, he quoted this like a long time ago when Clash of Kings was coming out. And George said he's the villain. I'm talking about Tyrion. He's like, he is the villain after all. He's like, it's good to write a good villain, but he is the villain after all. So like, it just makes it just
George said that about Littlefinger?
About Tyrion.
Huh.
people are like, oh, it's so I love reading Tyrion. He's like such a good character to read. He's so like inflicted, and he's like, I always love like a good villain. Like Tyrion is the villain after all.
Well,
he wrote that around the time of Clash of Kings.
If you think he ends up killing his dad, when does he kill his dad? At the end of this book?
And when he does that, he goes fucking crazy at the end of Storm of Swords, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at the end of this book is Battle of Blackwater.
I mean, he's not for as fun as Tyrion isn't, he's not a good guy. Like,
no, yeah. I mean,
starving people he doesn't really give a fuck about, right? Alistair tells him to go fuck himself.
He really is.
He's not trying to starve the people.
There's nothing he can really do about it. But
before even before he was hand, like I think he might be doing a little bit of hand, like good stuff for the people. But when he just thought he was the imp and had no real future, he was just like out fucking and drinking and doing whatever he wanted. He was selfish as fuck.
For sure, but even on the other side, if you think about it, like not even in the long term is he the villain, but like who are the good guys in the story? Like Robb Stark, maybe not Stannis 100%, but we're rooting for Stannis more than we're rooting for the Lannisters, right? And who is the one that they're all fighting right now? King's Landing's the root of it, and Tyrion's moving all the pieces in King's Landing. So Tyrion is like the villain of Robb Stark and Stannis and Renly and everyone that we're supposed to be rooting for. I just think it's interesting that most people think of Tyrion as a protagonist, and even George, back when he was writing this, like way back when, was thought of him as a villain while he was writing.
I mean, at this point, he's still a villain
a little bit, right?
Yeah. I mean, he's kind of a villain, but like towards the end, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, we don't really know what's going to happen to him, but he's not the villain. He's not the main villain. He's not the night.
He's going to be the hero. What an arc!
He's not the Euron.
What an arc! He comes back with Dany. Is Dany's hand. Dany marries Jon.
So I think you're way off. None of this shit happens I don't think
Dany marries Jon.
Tyrion is way more nihilistic. Ever after. Tyrion is way more nihilistic in the books. Like he hates everyone. He wants to come back and kill everyone. If anything, he's gonna be the person whispering in Dany's ear, "Fucking burn it all." Like I don't give a fuck anymore. He said it all. He's like, I don't give a fuck. He's like, if I had enough poison to kill you all, I would have. All he thinks about after he leaves King's Landing is killing his dad and like. Even Jaime, he hates Jaime now because of the whole Tysha thing. Like he is just like
Jaime's
totally different. Like if you, I'm excited for everyone to get to the last two books because Tyrion is not like he is in the show, and like I think we're gonna dig into that here. Two more little things. I think the last little thing is actually a really big thing. One, Cersei says, or somebody says about Cersei that she won't let them both go, both children. Varys says that, right?
Mm-hmm.
What ends up happening, and we're gonna get into the big spoiler about this.
Marcella goes to Dorne.
Marcella goes to Dorne, and Cersei doesn't want to let go of both. So what does Cersei do? She does some trickery with Tommen.
I have a question. I have a question.
Which question?
Say Littlefinger went to Cersei, and Cersei was like, "You can't send her to the Vale." Would he have sent her to the Vale, or was she going to Dorne no matter what?
She's going to Dorne.
She was going to Dorne no matter what.
I think so. Yeah.
He sent the letter.
Yeah, I think the letter was
like Nelson said.
Right, he would have sent a letter to the Vale if he wanted to send her there.
Hey, Littlefinger, you can't.
Right.
Go.
Okay.
And I think the Dorne is like everything Tyrion says here.
It makes sense.
I mean, the Lysa thing makes sense too, right? The Lysa thing does make sense. If you can you might be able to get her on your side with an offer like that, especially coming from Littlefinger, and her army would be helpful. But it works just as well for the Dornish, and I think Tyrion just chose that side. And
Dorne is not involved at the moment at all.
Exactly. And if they are going to join,
there's a Vale technically.
Yeah, but if the thing is, they're probably less afraid of Robb Stark than they are of Renly / Stannis. And if the Martells join the war, they're joining on Renly's side. I didn't even say that in this chapter. They're afraid they're going to join Renly.
Yeah.
So what I was going to say was Cersei. Once Marcella goes, Cersei tries some trickery with Tommen. Do you guys remember what she does? Doesn't happen in the show at all.
She dyes his hair.
No, it's before the Battle of the Blackwater, so it'll happen in this chapter.
She was going to kill him. She was going to kill him.
That happens in the show, but in the book, she tries to send him away. She tries to get him out of the city before the battle happens. And Tyrion learns of it and captures... Again, like nobody's trying to hurt Tommen. She's trying to get Tommen away. But Tyrion wants Tommen away and in control of Tommen. So Tyrion captures the people that... Basically captures Tommen and then takes Tommen away.
Where did Tyrion want to send Tommen?
What does he say?
To King's Landing?
Nothing here. Right,
I thought that's what you were saying.
No. She just wants to send him like Rosby or like Lord Giles' house.
Right, but you just said that Tyrion wanted to get Tommen out of the city as well. Where is he going to take him?
That's what Cersei. That's what Cersei's afraid of. That he will do something with Tommen, like he did with Marcella.
Okay. But here,
there's no plan for Tommen. Varys thinks there's a plan for Tommen, but there is no plan for Tommen right now. But what he says about Cersei, she'll never let you take both her children. He's right about that. Once Marcella's gone, Cersei freaks out and is afraid Tyrion's going to do something with Tommen and tries to get him out of the city in her control. But Tyrion learns of it and actually gets Tommen out of the city in his control. Again, just to like a nearby castle. But I just thought it interesting when Varys says like she'll never let you have both of her children. Mm-hmm. Like he's right on that. Like as soon as Marcella's gone, she tries to shoot with Tommen.
I bet Tyrion would have thought of that. Like he probably thought that too.
Clearly, I feel like he was ready. He was ready for it, but Varys.
That seems pretty. Pretty.
Last one I had, I think, is huge. Maybe when Varys is talking to Tyrion about Doran, he says the prince is a sentimental man. He still mourns his sister Elia and her sweet babe.
Just one kid.
One babe.
Sweet.
And sweet.
Danny's out running around.
Well, no. Who's Aegon? People call him Fagon. What's the story behind Fagon?
He's actually Rhaegar's kid.
Yeah. Well, what Varys tells Tyrion?
Oh, is that they got the one baby away?
They stole one baby away and they replaced it with an orphan. And so Aegon is the real Aegon.
Why
people think
Varys showed his hand right there by saying "babe."
Thing is, people think Varys is lying. People think both children died, and Aegon is actually like Illyrio or Varys' child, probably Illyrio's child. That's what the whole Fagon thing is about. And most people, I think, subscribe to Fagon over Aegon's real. But here, Varys says one babe. He still mourns his sister and her sweet babe, not babes.
That's interesting. That is interesting,
right? So, and who would know out of anybody? The only person who would know that there's only one is Varys, and he's the one who says this. And he's the one who stole it away.
He had a freaking.
Wasn't John Con there?
Slip of the tongue, forgot.
No, I think it's purposeful.
John Con. The thing is, people don't know if John Con knows the truth or not either. Because basically, what people say is basically Illyrio and Varys went to John Con and were like, "Yo, this is Rhaegar's son," and John Con loved Rhaegar, so he was like, "Okay, I'm going to take care of this boy." But who the fuck? What does John Con know? He wasn't.
If there's one thing I don't think Varys would do, would be he's. A slip of the tongue, like I think it's purposeful. It's purposeful for sure.
It's weird.
What's he trying to implant the idea in Tyrion's head now?
I don't even know.
Tyrion, 3 books.
I think it's more or less like, I'm going to drop this little bomb, this little like very secretive bomb. See if anybody picks it up. Like, what if he's just like dropping these little Easter eggs around?
Well, either way. So are you saying,
and no one notices? Like Tyrion doesn't say anything about it.
The big thing here is Aegon. If you ask all the fans, I would say that 70 to 80% would fall on the Fagon side. Where do you guys fall? Do you guys think Aegon's real or no? Sounds like you say no, Jeff.
I kind of think it's cool if it was real.
I think it's cool too.
And
three heads have the dragon. Danny, Jon, Aegon. You actually have 3 people.
It doesn't. Right? I mean, other than that kid getting burned by the dragon, which kind of sucks. But we know that he's not fireproof.
Who, Quentin?
That was Quentin Martell.
Quentin's a Martell, so he's not even close.
I thought that was Fagon that did that.
No, Fagon's the one that Tyrion's riding the boat with.
Is he not there yet?
No, Tyrion's riding the boat with Fagon, and then when they get to Volantis, he basically on the boat ride, Tyrion's basically saying, "Fuck going east or whichever way to meet Danny.
Yeah,
don't go east to meet Danny. Fuck that. Go west and just go to Westeros now." And then when they get to Golden Company, Tyrion gets captured before this, but then we start getting Jon Con chapters. And they get to the Golden Company and they go west. And at the end, they land. Fagon and Jon Con are at Griffin's Roost, which is Jon Con's old seat near Storm's End. They're in the start of Winds of Winter. They're going to attack Storm's End.
All right, but yeah, no, I do think Varys would have maybe if Tyrion picks up on it, maybe he well, that's something you're not ready for yet, type of shit.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know whether it's a slip of the tongue or not. I think the big important thing is here is.
But it's such a small slip of the tongue in the grand scheme of he's not even worried really about Ella Martell and the babies.
No one thinks there's another one alive. No one's thinking about that.
Right.
Tyrion would never catch on to this, but we would because we read this potentially.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
You caught it. I didn't catch it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a small one, but it's one of those things that I think maybe.
Yeah, I just don't think it's a slip. I think it's intentional.
And I think
maybe every time he brings
and that's one of those. This is one of those small things that was not in the show. So the show couldn't fuck this one up. There's no answer that we know is we know the answer to, even though I don't like it, like Bran or Jon's a Targaryen, like, you know, like all that shit, which is like 99% going to happen because it happened in the show. There is no Aegon in the show. So like all these theories that most people are on, I still have my like hipster theories where I can take the minority side. And this is one of those.
I mean,
right?
the Danes don't even
Here's
show
some
up
evidence
either.
for it.
Like, you've
No
got all the
Danes
Dane
either?
stuff.
Exactly. Basically all the
They
Dorne
don't
stuff.
even have Lightbringer, for Christ's sake.
I know.
It's so weird, dude. Like
I
how?
know.
We kind of forgot.
All right, so
kinda
let's
forgot
get
about this
let's
whole
get into the
sword.
big spoiler of this
Oh,
chapter.
fuck.
Big
I
spoiler.
thought that was the big spoiler.
The big spoiler, what Tyrion's talking about the whole time. Go ahead, Glow. Explain it to us.
So basically, his whole idea here is to figure out who he can trust between the three of them: Pycelle, Varys, and Littlefinger.
So how's he doing?
And who's gonna ride
was-
out to?
It's
Uh,
tricky. Do you know? I don't know if you guys know exactly how he does it. Glow said he had a problem with this. Like he sees a
So
loophole
he
in it.
gives each of them 3 different plans.
Yep.
So the 2 letters that he wrote, the one states to Dorne like, "Hey, you'll have a seat on the High Council, get Clegane, and you'll get Marcella."
Yep. Exactly.
His other plan that he gave to Littlefinger was all that shit with Lysa and the Vale, plus getting Tommen.
I
Or
thought
no, sorry,
No, I
plus
thought that was
getting
Marcella,
Marcella.
too. Yeah.
Plus getting Marcella. And then
Yep.
the last one was to Varys. Varys has both plans, Marcella to the Vale and Tommen to Dorne. So my
Right.
main issue with this,
No.
basically,
No. Varys
Varys
has
knows,
Marcella
Varys has
to Dorne.
Tommen-
Marcella to the
Tommen
Vale
to-
and Tommen to Dorne.
No,
other way
it's the
around.
other way because he knows of the letter, so he's like,
that's right.
well, Marcella can't go both places, so it must be Tommen to the Vale.
No.
No, he says Tommen to the Dorne.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, Glow's right.
Tommen to Dorne
Yes. That's what Varys thinks.
and Marcella to Vale.
Yes, you were saying it backwards the first time. Sorry. You're right
Sorry.
now.
Yeah, so.
What's
Yes,
the problem with it?
Marcella to Vale, Tommen to the. So my main thing is he gives Varys and Littlefinger reasons not to tell Cersei. He gives Littlefinger, hey, if you don't tell Cersei and this plan goes through, you can have Harrenhal. Hey, Varys, if you don't tell Cersei about both these plans, I'll know that you're on my side.
So
Pycelle, he just says,
the Littlefinger
"Fuck
thing
you."
makes sense. The Varys one doesn't, because if Varys tells Cersei, Varys might think that both people were telling that both
Well, so also, if he tells Cersei, he's telling them both plans. Or
so exactly.
Varys
So
is going to tell Cersei both plans,
the question
and he's going
is,
to know.
I think what Kyle should be asking himself right now is because what Kyle thinks is Varys is right. Varys thinks Tommen's going to Dorne. At least the plans are Tommen's going to Dorne, Marcella's going to Vale. That's not the plans. The plans are Marcella's going both places. But Kyle and Varys think the same thing right now because we know Marcella's going to Dorne, but the only hint of that is because we know that from future chapters. So what Kyle thinks is that Varys knows all the plans. And what Tyrion tells Varys is, I'll know the person, if Cersei finds out, then I'll know who snitched on me. Which basically tells Varys, I trust you not to snitch on me because I'm only looking out for these 2. But Varys, that's not what Tyrion's saying. Tyrion intentionally gave Varys the wrong info so that if Cersei finds out just about the Dorne thing and it's about Marcella.
Yeah, but he warns Varys, like, hey,
But
if
listen,
she finds out.
So say Varys tries to set up Pycelle, and he tells Cersei, "Oh, Tyrion has this plan for Tommen to go to Dorne," right? And doesn't say anything about the Vale thing because he's trying to set up Pycelle. So he wants Tyrion to hear that Cersei heard about the Dorne stuff, but not the Vale stuff. Well, then he knows it's Varys because Cersei found out the wrong Dorne stuff. That's how he's tricking Varys in this trick because Varys knows wrong information. So if Cersei comes to him with wrong information, then Varys is the one that did it. But if she comes to him with the right Dorne information, then he knows it was Pycelle. And if he
Right.
comes to her with the Littlefinger information, then it could have been Varys or Littlefinger. But if he
Right.
comes to her with both the Dorne and Marcel, then it's Varys. So like he's putting them all into a corner. The thing that you brought up though,
So you're right. I didn't think about the fact that he's making Varys think that he's only planning against.
exactly, it's
The other
slightly what he's telling Varys.
That's what I
is,
forgot.
yeah, he makes it a little bit hard. He makes Varys think that Varys could like set up either one of them, but that's not true. He might be able to set up Littlefinger, but he could not set up
Pycelle.
Pycelle if he tried to.
How could he set up Littlefinger?
Because he knows all the truth about the Littlefinger stuff. So if he only told Cersei what Littlefinger knew, how would Tyrion knew who
But he
told
thinks
Cersei?
Marcella's going there.
Marcella is. That's what Tyrion. everything that
not
Tyrion,
to the Vale.
because the thing is
The
very
only person that doesn't think that Marcel's going to Dorne is
Littlefinger.
Pycelle.
the thing is just treat
Pycelle.
Varys like the reader.
And
Pretend
Littlefinger.
Varys heard everything Tyrion
No,
said this
Pycelle
chapter.
doesn't know shit. Pycelle doesn't, or no, he does know because he reads.
Pycelle
read it.
thinks that he's going.
It says
that-
Marcella, doesn't it?
Yes, but
Pycelle
Varys
thinks
doesn't know
Marcel is
that.
going to Dorne.
Just
Right.
pretend Varys is the reader because he hears everything characters say. But like, if Pycelle read something, like, there's no saying how would Varys know that, right? He only has like little birds in the walls potentially, so he wouldn't know what he read, and we know that Varys doesn't know by what he says to Tyrion at the end. That's why this whole conversation is fucking tricky. But I think, Lo, you bring up a good point that the fact that he gives Littlefinger like a really good reason not to tell Cersei, like, kind of hurts his plan here. Like, if you're trying to find out who's deceptive. Like,
I mean,
obviously
Pycelle's
Littlefinger-
reason isn't very that good either. Oh, because she's frail. Like,
Well, I mean, no. The thing is, he doesn't. What Glow's saying is he gives Littlefinger a reason not to tell Cersei. Like, if you don't tell Cersei, I'll give you
He
Harrenhal.
doesn't give Pycelle any reason not to tell Cersei.
And he doesn't. So when Pycelle tells Cersei and not Littlefinger, and Tyrion's like, "Oh, I found him," it's not 100% logical
Right.
thinking. Like, Littlefinger might have told him if when Littlefinger's like, "What's in it for me?" If he was like, "Nothing, just don't tell Cersei," and then Littlefinger doesn't tell Cersei, then like,
right.
you know what I mean?
Mhm.
But if he would have told like, "Hey, Pycelle, if you do this, I'll give you a
If you
fuck ton of
don't
gold," then like,
Don't
who
tell
knows?
her, and
Exactly.
I'll bring a whore over for you. 'Cause
Exactly.
we know he's all into that.
Because like basically who people listen to is all about who's giving like who's hooking them up more. And right now Cersei's hooking Pycelle up more than Varys is.
Right.
Well,
And
fuck.
Littlefinger's about to
Cersei
get
is
the
hooking
biggest castle.
more than Tyrion is. And what Tyrion does with Littlefinger is says, "Yo, I'll hook you up more than Cersei is."
Right.
So like I get what you're saying, Chloe. You're right, it's not fair. But it's still cool. And then like all this stuff will come
I
out in
thought
the next
Kyle would have
chapters with
picked up
Kyle.
on it a little bit. That
a little bit more that he was setting them up. I kind of gave it to him a
That
little
he
bit at
was
the
trying-
end there.
I mean, I say that to Kyle, and I definitely admit to not knowing at
Yeah.
all what the fuck was going on.
But if you were
here,
reading
so-
it like we're reading it, I feel like you'd pick up on it a little bit
Yeah.
more. Yeah. But yeah, good chapter. We've been going a while in the spoiler section, longest spoiler section in a while. I really like this chapter. I feel like there's so much
Yeah, I
politics
enjoyed
and
it.
stuff.
I enjoyed it.
The next Sansa chapter I think is good too, even though it's a Sansa one. The whole
all
Dantes
the
thing
sweet
is good.
stuff. I just have a couple here.
Good.
I'll just roll through the ones I
Run
have.
through 'em.
50,000 Dornish men versus one rabid dog. A sweet offer. Tommen could be a good king if he was away from Cersei, and his nature is so sweet. And then he calls a sweet sister. I thought it was like a sweet offer for 50,000 Dornish men. Is it actual? We know that it gets all fucked up, right? Like
Well, the Dornishmen purposely lie about their numbers. I don't know if that's what you're talking about. Dornishmen make it known that they have way more
they
people
walk
than
in
actually
single
have.
file. They walk in single file to hide their numbers.
Yeah, they make it known they make it known they have way more than they actually have. I have two more sweets. I said the one, the Prince of Sentimental Man. He still mourns his sister Elia and her sweet babe. The one babe thing, and there's the sweet in there.
Yeah.
And then the other one I had was when Tyrion's talking Littlefinger. Yet coming from you, the same words might fall more sweetly on their ears. When he's saying like, "Yo, give this proposition
Lies.
to
More
Lysa
lies.
and Catelyn."
A lot of lies. Wait, does that mean Tom is actually not sweet in nature? Maybe he's a fucking asshole.
Hey, we didn't talk about that at all. They literally talk about Tom becoming
I
king.
was
here,
thinking
and
about
goes
that,
to
but,
happen.
like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
we don't know
happens.
what Tommen is as a king. I mean,
Is he gonna?
we know a little bit.
Is he
He's
gonna
fucking
face plant
12.
off of?
I hope.
top of
That'd
the
be
tower?
Sick. That'd be sick.
I hope not.
That was one of the coolest scenes of.
It was sick.
He doesn't have POVs. How do we know?
Dude,
we get a mountain
Nelson.
POV.
It was literally
It was a
like
cool
10.
scene, for
It was
sure.
10
It was
minutes
awesome.
of that like instrumental.
That sick music.
That was
yeah.
the intro to the next
Sept.
one, right?
What is that?
No,
The Sept?
no.
No, it was like the Sept song or whatever it's called. The
Did
Seven.
Did
the
the Sept
song's
blow
called
up
The
at the
Seven.
beginning of the chapter, or the beginning of the episode, or the end of the episode? I
The,
thought it was
the
the end.
beginning. It was
The
the
end.
intro. It was the intro of the episode.
You might be right. And then Tommen dies right after that. Oh yeah, no, that music is sick. That's the Mandalorian music. What you're singing? Dun-dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun-dun.
I don't remember what the
I don't know
Sept
about
of the
that.
Seven music was, but it's the beginning, and then Tom is just like looking out there, and then they stop the music. He like walks away, puts his crown down, face plants.
Yeah. No, it's a good scene. Great
It's
cinematography.
fucking awesome.
Great
It's
cinematography,
fucking
as they
awesome.
say. Yeah.
That gets me fucking goosebumps thinking
It
about it.
gets
I
me
might just go
excited for
listen to
House of the
song.
Dragon. Oh, you guys new on Discord, there's a House of the Dragon. Put any thoughts, comments you have on that. Anything from Fire and Blood that you guys have read, want to talk about in there? We'll talk about it. For that, that's the end of the episode for us. We'll see you guys in the next one. Sansa 2.
Bye.
Peace out. Night is dark and full of terror.